dangerous.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So so I need to refocus and get fix some bad habits, and I think to do that I'm gonna just stick with this system from that video I watched last night.
Yeah, and that's I think, that's kind of like what I mean, that's what I wanted to hear. Like I wanted, because we have, there's so many ways to trade. And then we get into,
Hmm.
different little styles of it. But at the end of the day, I think we're at the point where I think the new video right there, that gives us a starting point where we can execute the same trades over and over. And now we can just start getting data. That the whole point of that one was to get it started off that we get a starting point, right? So when something happens or something goes into a trade, at that point we're like, all right, so we know how you entered, we know what you were doing, and now we can focus on like the basics. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
to
yeah,
kind
I
of
think this definitely makes it easier to do that, and it simplifies things where you just kind of always know what your approach is and what you're gonna do.
yeah, yeah. So what right now, what leverage are you using?
Well, I'm gonna go back to 50x and stop messing around with the higher leverages.
Yeah, you have well, so we needed a base, right? So I love 100x leverage because
Yeah,
the shorter the move gets us in and out. The problem is when you use 100x leverage, you have to be dedicated to taking profits. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
You will always hit your target, but if you don't take the target, it'll always go twice as far back. You see what I'm saying? So it's like
Oh yeah,
if you use
seen
100x
it.
leverage, yeah, all the time, all the time. Like
Yeah.
you have to be dedicated to that 50%. So what I wanted to do is after talking to, Carlos, the guy who is, putting up, wanting to trade 3, 4,000, 5,000 bucks, 10,000 bucks a trade, trying to wrangle him into a moment where it's like it's just consistency. And then also the new guys giving him a platform where it's they can just make a trade, right? Because I realized a lot of guys weren't getting in trades, right? So then we're able to kind of like really break it down and say, okay, if we're doing it like this, then what's going to happen is it's going to allow us to at least make one trade, right? When you do that buy-in with 40% of your bag, it at least gets us
Hmm.
in a trade, right? And then from there, we can collect data and start to build, right? And the reason why we picked 50% because normally we have the position trades at 30 and we have the bigger trades at 80. So we just took the middle ground so that way we can just collect information and be like, all right, so here's what we have. So let's go into now building it into how to get information first so that we can move forward, right? So what I want to do here is I'm gonna share the screen here. Give me one second. And I wanted to go over the system and kind of go into the breakdown of magic, right? So a coin that isn't really um, a normal coin, right? But it's an active coin, and
Yeah, I've been watching that one. I had there's yours. There we go. So I said last night after watching that video, I set up some 15-minute moon alerts.
you can see I've been
And
marking this up like crazy because I
love
wanted
it.
to, it's kind of like if we can get it to where we can operate on a coin that's getting like massive pumps out of nowhere, but also it moves quickly, right? Because sometimes you see a coin and it's pumping, but it's not really like moving the needle, right? So it's making a move, but it's not affecting the money, right? And then there are other times where there's coins like all of a sudden you're in and it's like up 300%, down 50, up 100, down 200, and you're like, I can't even get in or out of this damn coin, right? So you have these crazy ass swings, right? So Magic kind of was a coin that I felt was moving erratic, making a lot of money, dumping a lot of money, making a lot of money. So that's why I was like, all right, this is the coin we're going to start to study on, and this is where we'll build from. So this will give us the data we need to handle a coin that moves slower and a coin that moves a little faster. So, so let's kind of
This is
walk through.
perfect
So,
because I this is the one I was looking at during that video, and I actually jotted down some questions about some setups.
Yeah. So, we're going to run through here, guys, and we're going to go over some what we call bullet points, right? So, you guys will hear me talk about, a lot of you guys are in the intro course right now. And the intro course is where you come in and we have a very simple setup. We get you our indicators, we get you a system, one trade system that we're doing up and down, and we go over very simple entries and outs, right? And it's a really, basic plan because we don't want a lot of information because that's where mistakes come in. And then once you go through, the basic movement, then we're able to make adjustments, right? So right now, the first thing you have is just following through. And remember, guys, if you're inside the Discord, make sure you always have your mic muted if we're inside the class, just so we don't have that. If that's you, Cal, don't worry about it. And
Yeah, sorry, my kid just came in
yeah,
the
yeah,
room.
no, that's why I said if it's you, don't worry about it. Yeah, you're good on there. Yeah, you're kidding. I just don't want other kids like over on you. But so what we're doing is at the end of the day, it's like once we have a process, then we can make adjustments because there's multiple ways that we can adjust to win profits, right? We have tools, we have leverage, we have entries, we have all these things that come with the indicators that we can move the needle, right? So we have to start with the basis. So right here, let me get into this real quick. I wanted to put that out there. All right, so what we have is the process of the beginning, right? So the first thing we would do is the basics, right? So we start off with just the simplicity. We're going to start off with 50x leverage. The reason why we use 50x leverage because it's in the middle of long positions and our high positions, and it gives us a happy medium because we will actually be using leverage to adjust profits and targets. That way, once we have a standard of trading, we can use leverage to fix some problems, right? So 50x leverage is what we do. And the second thing is we have to have the same amount of bags, right? So if you're trading $100, then every trade you do is $100, and it's broken down through the 3-trade process, right? So the way to determine, okay, well, how much money do I use VC? Well, I would recommend everybody starting off with a $10 trade, right? Especially for the first, week or the first moment where you need to get at least 10 trades done, right? If you do 10 trades with $10, you can see the results. If you accomplish the results that we were supposed to have, then you can move up to $20. But I would stay when you first start, I would stay at the 10 minimum, 20 or 10 the right number, or move up to $20 and start with a $20 bag. That means you would put $100 to the side and say, okay, I have my options here, my 5 options of my 5 bags, right? And this will give you basically, if you mess up 10 trades in a row, you still have money to keep going, right? So that's the whole process of having the same bag amount, right? It's not about the money, guys. The very first thing here is you need to build the confidence and the understanding of what you're looking at and what you're making. So that way, when you make the transitions in the process, you're at a point where you can repeat the process over and over, right? So the first thing for us is going to be setting ourselves up to where it's the same $10 trade or $20 trade, right? Keep in mind, once we do 10 trades, right? When you first start, you're probably going to do a lot more trades than you do in the future because once you kind of master the ins and outs, your trades will actually get less and less because you're going to eliminate a lot of the trades that you do that are, higher risk, right? And you're just going to start targeting the highest potential trades. So in the beginning, to get to 10 trades is going to take a day, right? When you get, 3 weeks through the program, it's going to take, 2 or 3 days, right? You'll realize that you're starting to, get better. And that's because now you're doing less trades. You'll realize you're getting better. But so what we do is we start off with $10, maximum $20. Okay. Once we go through that process and we're able to do a 10 trade review, after 10 trades, right? We do 10 trades because it's not about one trade, it's about the average percentage of wins. So once you get through 10 trades, we can go back and look at those 10 trades and we have information on those 10 trades that'll allow us to make some adjustments to improve profits, targets, and positions, right? So we can fix that from the beginning. So the first part is getting better entries. The second part is hitting our targets of 50% profits, because we want to be the masters of 50%, right? So we should be at the point after 3 weeks that you're hitting 9 out of 10 trades for 50% profits. So that's the goal. The first month is to end the last week of the month where you are 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10, 50% profits on every single trade, and you have a system step by step that you just do every single time, and now you're in that zone, right? And now as we move through, we've been incorporating adding to the bag. So if you can do a 10 trade and you can triple your $20 or your $10, and you go, okay, I started with 10, I made 40. Now you can add $10 to that $10. Same thing with the 20.
Mhm.
You take 20 to 80, then you add $20 and you double your bag. You do the same thing. Once you get to 100, now every time you do 10 trades and you have 100 and you bring in 300 profit, then you make that 100 bag, add it by $50. Then do it again, add it by $50. So every time you 3x your bag, you add $50. Okay, and that way you're only using profits to actually gain positions, which is what we're trying to do here, is use other money to get into our spots, right? So that's why those things are set up. Now, the only way to calculate, how you're going in or out or what you're making is by having the set bag price, the set leverage. So 10 or $20 is what you begin with. You're going to do 50x leverage, and then you're going to start off with a simple entry, right? So right now we're going to cover the entry here, and we're just going to go over the basis of it, right? So the trade that we're doing will be triggered by the 15-minute, right? Meaning that the 15-minute and the 1 hour are the two things that we're going to look at. These are going to dictate, the trade. So
Real quick.
go ahead.
So for my alerts, should I have 15-minute moon alerts? Is that the
Yeah, so you
how we
can.
want to trigger these?
Yeah, so once you find a coin that
I had all 1 hour. I had all 1 hour moon alerts set, and I transferred
yeah,
half of switched half of those to a 15-minute based
yeah,
off of
yeah,
that video last night.
yeah. So we're going to be doing, so the trade that you're doing on the overall as we work up is going to be focused on the 1 hour. Okay, that's the middle trade of the group. What we're doing now is the intro courses, we're focusing on the trades that lead to the 1 hour, right? Because a lot of
Okay.
times trades will have where they follow a simple pattern, and then other times they just like give all the profits right in the beginning, right? So what we're doing here is we're showing you how to take the 15-minute, work it into the 1 hour so that you maximize gains off the 1 hour, because the 1 hour is the A trade, right? So once you get into A trades, which is the highest profitable trade, what we're doing now is the step by step into the A trade, right? So that's the 15-minute and the 1 hour. So if you're setting alerts, you want to set alerts on your 15-minute and your 1 hour, right? So the 1
All
hour
right. So
is
do
kind of,
both of them.
yeah, the 1 hour is kind of like your trend, okay? So the 1 hour moon is telling you the trend of the coin, and the 15-minute is what you're trading inside of the trend, which is what we're going to cover
Got it.
right now. So on this, every time we cover it, what we're going to be doing is simplifying the process of getting in and out to where it becomes a very simple entry, right? So if you guys ever hear me talk about boot camps or anything like that, that's where we cover um, techniques and what we call trigger points, to where you can simplify everything that we do, and then also based on how you trade, how to make decisions that are higher percent for yourself, because everybody kind of trades a little bit, has a little bit different thing that they do, or how they look at something or perceive it. So we just have to get to the point where when we're moving things or doing things, we turn around and have it where boot camps allow us to do more one-on-one, and kind of like solve the personal issues that the trader has on their own side, right? Because everybody has a little thing that they do a little bit different. So we're going to walk through this trade, because obviously the last couple classes and everything that we've done, we've been in the position where we've actually been in this coin and we've worked it over for a little bit of time here. And now we're at the point where we're going to go back and evaluate the entire coin and kind of catch what we've seen, because everyone's been here. Obviously, you can see here we've been beating this coin up for quite a while. And every time there's a big run, we're always looking for the big pullback, right? So we're going to go through this entire coin here, work our way back, and start piecing together like, okay, where are what we call triggers that we can look at and be like, okay, that is the right play for me at that time. That's what I'm going to get into. And then we have what's called checklists, right? So checklists are the easiest way to find the best entry, the best this and that. And then that way we get where we are. Let me get rid of that right there. Okay. All right, so let's set this up. Okay, so now we're going to go here and kind of look at this entire coin here on the overall. So for me, we're going to start with the basics here, right? And I'm going to get rid of this. And what we're going to do here is just focus on our normals, right? Because this gives us an opportunity to look at this coin and kind of see how it's operating, right? So the first thing I want to do is the master trade, or the A trade that we want to get into, is obviously it's always going to be our 1 hour, right? So when we take a look here, we can see our 1 hour trends, right? So and 1 hour moon. So when this entire thing started, obviously we have our 1 hour moons throughout here. We have our 1 hour trends that go off here, and we're going to match those up. So let me pull this through. Here's our 1 hour trend entry, and that went all the way to here.
Okay, on that long trend, yeah.
Yeah, and 1 hours are always white. So this is our 1 hour trend that we had. That's one piece. The second time we have that 1 hour trend, we have it here, right? Now this came a little bit later on the confirmation trend, but color wise, here is where we had the trend, and over here they hit at the same time, color and confirmation trend, right? So the color background is the trend confirmation, and the line color is the other part. Now sometimes the reason why we have both of them together is so that when they conform and they hit together, we know it's a very powerful move at that time, and it kind of like triggers. But we have both of them on there, so we'll look at both of them. All right, so now we can see here that we have our trend, right? Our 1 hour trend here and here. And we can see right there that that's where, we've seen the most action when we had them together. Here we have a moment where we're getting the trend here and we're seeing both of them together here. So in hindsight, we can enter here and say something like, okay, we can take a short position inside of Magic in here, and more than likely over time, we'd get what we want out of there. All right, so let me set that for there. We'll come back and take a look in a second. All right. So as we look at Magic, we have all this trend sided up, trend sided here. Now, all we want to do is just make sure as we're trading, right, just kind of like a tip, is we want to trade with the trend, right? So when you see the 1 hour trend go green, this is where that we would say to ourselves, okay, we want to trade, the ups stronger. And then when we have the red trend, we want to be more favorable to the downs stronger, right? Meaning that, once we're set up, we could look for longs to be longer and shorts to be longer as well, fall more. And the reason why we kind of divided it up and said, you know what, just take 50% each time is because when guys try to extend a trade, sometimes they end up breaking even on a trade instead of just taking the money that was already there, right? And once you learn that if you just take the $100, right? So it's like a concept, right? Once you learn, once you learn that,
Once you
okay,
see it disappear a bunch of times.
yeah, yeah, and you just have to say, okay, well, okay, what's the game plan, right? And this is where you have to structure a plan. Like the plan to me is this: once I want the bag to get to a level that every time I make a trade, it makes $100 or $200, and then I close it there. Doesn't matter if it runs for 2,000-3,000 or whatever. Like at the end of the day, it's like, okay, if I can figure out in my life, in my schedule, that I can make 10 trades a day or 5 trades a day, then I know well, okay, if I can make 5 trades a day, and on average, if I'm hanging out with everyone in the live trade and we're talking and we're just kind of around there, based on my schedule and my day and the time of day I like to trade, there's normally 3 or 4 or 5 good trades. Then I know I can make 1 or 2 good trades, right? And then I know that, okay, well, if I want to make $200 a day and I make 2 trades, I need to get to a level where each trade makes $100, right? It's kind of like simplifies life. Now, the best part is once you find that happy medium, now you have a goal on what you need to build up to get to where you're going. You know what I mean? And eventually, as you get those trades down and you're kind of fitting into your own time frame and your own section, eventually you free up more time as you get better, and you free up more time, and then you start getting to the point where, like, you know what, I'm doing well here. But your bags also we build up, which allow you to make more profits with less risk, because the bigger the bag, the easier it is to hit $100, right? At first, you're stretching the bag a little bit because you're trying to get to that 100, but once the bag gets big enough, it automatically just feeds the $100 win, right? So you can always increase as you move forward. It just basically it's understanding the goal that you have, right? So for me, it's like, if I'm doing a $500 bag, 40% on that, $200, I'm good. Because I know I'm going to do, if I want to do, 5 trades today, I'll make my $1,000 today, right? So it's the concept of understanding that formula that will change, right? And this is boot camp, right? So if you guys see me like talk about, guys, we're going to run a boot camp. This is the type of stuff that we go over in boot camp to just maximize your profits. So I'm gonna do a mini boot camp here because I feel like in the beginning of this course, we're starting the new year, we're taking all the data from last year, and now we're compiling with all the new people that came in to put together where every like 3 months we try to simplify the process as we move forward, as we get more people in, because we're trying to get it to where, like you always hear me say, I want the worst guy here to be the best trader. If he can't make money, then we're not done yet, right? We need to get it to where the worst guy can walk in here, never saw crypto in his life, just signed up for crypto.com, just figured out how to send money over, just learned this, and in 3 weeks, he can make 10 trades and 9 out of 10 win 50%. And 4 weeks after that, he can make his whatever he needs to make to be happy. And 4 months after that, he's making 100 grand a year. That's the guy that this has to go to, right? So this is kind of like a boot camp breakdown, right? So just on the overall, so you can understand the trend, right? So when I see a green trend or a 1 hour trend, then I know this area I have a better chance of my longs, being strong. And that's kind of where I like to trade longs, because to me, I want to be where I have the highest percent, because longs are also the most difficult to get into, because on a long, you need people to buy. On a short, once they start selling, then people like to sell, right? It's not hard to get people to take profits, because don't forget, the game that we're in is buy low, sell high, right? It's not buy high, sell, sell low. Right? So you got to be in the game where you understand what your game is. The game that 80%,
That's monumental.
yeah, the game that we're in here, 80% of the people playing this game are buy low, sell high, right? The other 20% are buy low, sell high, then short the bastard down, right? So we're in the opposite game. I like the game where you buy low, and then when you sell, I take profits with you down, right? Because the odds of it going down are a lot more than the odds of it going up, right? So when we have a long, the very first thing to improve our percentage is to trade with at least the 1 hour trend, right? And to double that process, to double the ability to see how much it's going to jump, you simply add the 2 hour trend, right? And we'll cover that in a different time. But right now, the 1 hour trend is what we're going to focus on, because we're focusing on the 1 hour moons. And then inside the 1 hour trade, we're going to focus on the 15-minute trades that lead into the 1 hour. And the reason why we do that is because if you're inside the 15-minute trade and you're really kind of mastering that, moving along, those 15 minutes will run into the 1 hour, which will then explode into a big, massive trade for you, right? So if you work the system, you just sit there, putting in your time, three, four, get a trade, get a trade, get a trade. You're like 50%, 50%, 50%. And then all of a sudden you hit this trade and it's like exploding. You're like, oh shit. And then boom, 300%. You're like, woo, that's literally 6 trades. All right. So that's where we're starting. So here, we're just taking advantage of the first alert. We have a trend. We know it's a 1 hour. Obviously, when the 1 hour red trend, you can see, we're getting pullbacks on that. But for the long position is what we'll look at right here. And then we'll also kind of pull the short. So first thing for us is alerts, right? Trend alerts are the easiest thing to set. Go over here, hit your trend alert, right click, set the alert for long position and a short position on your 1 hour trend. Those are the alerts I really like because once the trend alert comes, you can go look and see where you're at. The second thing that we have to always understand is every trade makes a simple move. There's always a push, there's always a retest, and then there's always the rebuy, right? So you always hear people, they'll say, I'm getting in on the second leg, right? What they mean is they need a push, and then once the push is done, they need a retest, and once the retest happens, then they make a trade. Now, when you understand that, that's basically 80% of the market makes that trade, right? So there's way people get into trades. So they always make that move. And the reason why is because there's leverage in the game now and people can buy and leverage, and one push to the top gets them paid and then they leave. And then it comes back down and they're like, oh, another chance. And they get in because they're trading what's called a channel, which is how low a support resistance, like channels are just support and resistance. So some traders trade a style of finding a support zone, which you see right here. This is a support zone. You have where magic goes down to here, and then you have where magic rejects here. So you'll have a bunch of guys, if that's enough percent, right? They go here and say, okay, when it goes down to here and goes to there, that's an average of 3%, right? So if I start setting my buys at this lower level, I know that it pushes to this level, I can make 3%. So if you do a 10x leverage, you're making 30% every time this thing goes up and down. Up, sell, up, sell, up, sell. And a lot of guys will sit there and just take this little particular trade, right? So those are the guys out there creating the little pops and dumps. And that's why sometimes you're in a trade and you're like, why isn't this going down? It keeps like jumping, it keeps on jumping back up. It's because people are playing the trend. Until that money decides that, it's realizing that the trend is happening and it says, you know what, let me dump on the trend traders right here. And that's called a liquidity grab. And then from there, they're like, all right, get rid of the trend traders. All right, everyone's panicking. Let's go for a ride, right? And the reason why it goes for the ride is because the whales are sitting on the lower level of the move. And that's because they know that from this percent in this section here is where they're going to get their most money, which is basically the next support zone. So you got the little guys doing the small trend, and you got the big guys going, we need 15 to 30%, right? And that's where you see these guys get in, and that's where they're going to hit. So most of the time, whales take profit about 20%. So that's just an overall ideal of how people trade in the market. So once you understand that, you can understand that we're just operating in between what everyone else is doing, and we're just using leverage to take advantage of what they do and just swipe out pieces of the pie. And that's why I think the biggest thing that guys are struggling with is how much money do I want to make on a trade, or when do I close the trade? And, and I think that's where it comes down to, you set 50% for the target, you set your stop loss, it hits the target and you're done. And if you do that, and you can sit there and set a bunch of trades as you move along, and you're going to realize that as those trades go along, you're hitting all those trades, you'll realize that you are becoming the master of 50%. And if you want to make more money, you don't have to raise your take profit to 75%. You just need to increase your bag. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you don't increase your leverage or your profit margin. You try to just increase your bag. Yeah.
Increase your bag. And the job is to increase your bag and then lower your percentage. Like once my bag triples, I don't want 50% on the triple bag. I want 40. Why? Because I want to win every time. I don't want any risk. Right? So that's the concept we have to kind of when everyone comes in and all the new guys come in, that simple mindset, the way to trade like that is how we can help everyone advance. Because when the new guys and the guys, Kale, Horst, Stelios, you guys can simply say, okay, well, let me ask you, my friend, the last trade you did, what was your leverage? Right? If it's not 50%, like, well, there's your mistake. All right. What was your stop loss? It was 15. It needs to be 50. There's your mistake. What was your take profit? Well, I put it at 75. I was moving it. There's your mistake. It needs to stay at 50. Right? And now they're like, okay.
Right.
Now,
Stick.
yeah,
Be
now
disciplined.
be disciplined and be like, you have to learn to be
Yeah.
you need to make 50% a trade every single time before you do anything else that you're doing. Right? Because I can't help you because you're doing 50% leverage, then you're doing 80, then you're doing 30%. I mean, you're all over the board, right? And if you're all over the board, we can't give you any help. So here's our system. The system is you start off with 50x leverage. The system is you start off with 50% profits, you 50% stop loss. Okay. Now, how do you enter a trade, right? Okay, that's the next thing. So now that we have the basis down, let's go get a trade. Okay, so here's how we trade. For doing a long trade, we need a 1 hour trend to be in effect. If it's a red trend, then we're just going to be looking for shorts on that trade. If it's a 1 hour green trend, then we're looking for longs and shorts. We're always looking for both, but we know that in the 1 hour green trade, if we're going to do longs, that's when we're going to do longs. Why? Because if it's a 1 hour red trend, we're not going to do a long on it because it's already 50% chance it's not going to hit the number we want. So why would we take the risk? So if we're going to do longs, a bullet point is trade with the 1 hour green trend. It's the only way to do longs. Boom. And then everyone's like, perfect. Okay. Everything else, shorts.
Is it vice versa for shorts?
Yeah, I mean, so shorts, you can take advantage of shorts on every pullback because remember, every time there's a pump, there's a pullback. So we can short everything, right?
So you could do a short off a 15-minute moon even if you have a 1 hour trend that's green.
Yeah. But to do a long, like I just, I was doing it the other day. And that's why I spent the last, week just kind of trading everything again, just to see like, okay, the market's picking up. There's all these new coins, and I just traded everything because I wanted to see the averages, right? And I do tons of trades, and I was like, you know what? It's always the same thing. It just comes back to the basics. Like it comes back to taking profits, right? And the one thing about a push up, right? And that's kind of where we can short any trend, right? As long as the information says it's time to short, we can short any trend up because everyone at some point needs to take profits, right? But when you do a long, if you don't have a 1 hour green trend, then you're just asking for it, right? Because you're battling the up and there's no one buying. So you're forcing the issue. But when it's up, you're kind of like you're nibbling at the feet, like, all right, you dumping now? Oh, you want to keep pushing? Okay. It caused some FOMO. Okay, you're gonna keep pushing. Okay. Some more good news, and then finally they break. You know what I mean? But that could take like Magic is a perfect example of that, right? So Magic went on this crazy little tear. Yeah. So this is a good coin to look at and kind of break down for this segment because it kind of had all the traits that people get caught in the middle and confused on what they should be doing, right? So this is why I was like, a perfect coin to, review for this last week and kind of dig into because then we can go back and go, okay, let's go over the basics of what happened here. Because when it's live, guys always say, well, VC, you look at the trades after they happen and it's like confusing. It's like, well, I can do the live one, but then you're not going to understand the process, right? So now that's why I did the live trading. Now we can go back and say, okay, here's some bullet points and some like sticky notes that you put down. This is where you build your system and you put down things to protect you to not make mistakes, right? So that's what we're going to do. So when people start off, guys, keep them in the same thing. 50x leverage, stop loss 50%, take profit 50%. Okay? That's what we do. If they're trading anything else other than that, then that's wrong. Right? Very simple. 50x leverage, stop loss 50%, take profit 50%. We work off a 3-trade entry. 40% of your first entry, 20% of your or 30% of your second, and then 30% of your third, right? On average, we get 2 trades in before we hit our profits. But if we can get a third trade in and get the full bag in, then we're all right. But at the end of the day, we're expecting to get at least the first trade and then the second trade on the bounce, and then we close out on our 50%. Very simple, right? So that way, when guys are asking, okay, I'm doing this, we can all answer the same way and not have, conversations of what's going on. Just a simple question. Well, what's your leverage? 40. Well, that's wrong. Make it 50. All right, perfect. What's your stop loss? 20. That needs to be 50. Okay. What's your take profit?
Yeah.
75. Needs to be 50. Okay. Now, let me ask you, when you enter a trade, how do you enter a trade? What's the first amount you enter? I just entered the bag. Wrong. You entered 40% of your bag. Okay. First trade is 40% of your bag. Second trade is 30. Third trade is 30. Capiche? Capiche. Okay, now let me ask you, how much are you trading? I'm trading $50. Okay, wrong. The minimum is 10, or the max should be 10 or 20. Right? Have you won 10 trades in a row? No. Then you trade 10 fucking dollars. Period. You're not adding more money is not gonna fucking make you magically figure out how to do this shit. 10 or 20. Okay, let's get through the basics. Right? Now we all have that in there. We have everyone lined up. We can put that piece through. And now at that point, everybody has a very simple process of how they can get through a trade, right? So now let's break down magic with the basics, right? So now we can look at, we have targets, we have areas, and now we can kind of understand what we're looking at and how we can make money, right? So the first thing is if we're doing a long, right? So you have this big pullback, comes along, you're sitting around, you set your alert on your trend, boom, you get an alert for a trend. Now the alerts are going to come a little bit early. So you'll get this probably about this candle here, right? Now, if you get your alert on your candle, you can go back and you can see that you already have your moon here, right? So if you set your alerts on your moons, right, you would have an alert here, but you wouldn't have a trend, so you'd be waiting anyways, right? Now, moon alerts also help because let's say you have the moon alert set on a 1 hour, you see that it's pushing up, it doesn't get a trend, and then it hits the beautiful 1 hour RSI heading down with the 1 hour red moon, and then you say, wow, shit, the long ain't here, but I'll take a quick 8% down, right?
Right.
So it's very simple to do this, right? And that's what I was kind of looking at this all types of ways over the last 7 days, because I'm like, you know what, we made a lot of changes, but we just need this shit's not this hard. Like it's really, really simple. So we just need to simplify a straight line for this shit. So that's an example of how to trade a moon trade, right? Because you literally, trading the trades are like this. It's like this. So a trade always makes a move, and then once it makes its move, it goes back to what it wants to do, right? A green moon here in the middle of a red trend basically signals a move, which is just a bounce. The red moon coming back and the RSI crossing back down signals the start of the continuation, right? There it is. That's the second leg. So first leg, right? Red moon, right? Same shit. Here you have a green moon. Here you have a green trend, right? That would normally signal that you would be looking for longs in this position, right? Now there are other things that you have to consider that we'll cover in a little bit, but here's a green moon. Here's the green trend. You would be looking long here, right? So we would get some longs in here, and then we'd see that we get another long, and then we can see it's getting weak. And what happens is the red moon comes in, and you're like, oh shit, the red moon's here. All right, so I should be looking for a short. Now you're waiting for the trend to come in, right? So now you're signaling to a short position, and you look for shorts. The reason why you need the trend is so you don't get the spike on you, right? Now, these are where you see the trend come in, and you're coming along, and then you get the moon. Then you catch a trend. And you're like, boom, got my trend, got my moon, right? At that point, depending on your leverage, right, you'd be able to take a position here. So we're gonna work with one leverage. So we're gonna do the same move over and over so that guys can just implement it. So here's your moon. You get a trend. Okay?
Yeah.
There's always a move. There's the first move down. Okay. You get the RSI. It pumps up. Right. So here's your moon. Here's the first move of that. Right. So every part of this has a part, and that's what I wasn't really like. It kind of clicked to me when I was looking at it, like, all right, where are these guys missing or jumping, right? And this is kind of it. So you get a moon. The moon signals this move here. The RSI bounces. The RSI signals this move here. Now, once that volume here doesn't break positive right there, to me, I know that at that point, that's an entry for a short, right? But I'm also seasoned, right? So I realize that sometimes
Yeah.
guys don't understand that even though that signals the short there, the reason why it's really a short is because it's negative volume right there, you see? So the fact that it's negative volume means it's going to be more of a pull down. So I already know that. So what I was thinking to myself, like, all right, well, how would guys, put themselves into a position where we can teach this as the next level of the trade as they move forward? So then I was like, all right, so in reality, we started looking at these middle lines going, okay, well, if the RSI can break the 50 line and then start to come down, that would trigger where you would say, oh, my 1 hour went up and it's coming back down. I can take this short. And that's kind of like the first tip that we would say in boot camp. The tip would be that if your RSI breaks the 50 line and then rejects and crosses over, that would give you a big enough pull to take advantage of that move, which is this move right here. Okay. Now, as we look at this,
So that's on the 1 hour, right? Because I
yeah,
think on the 15, you said the RSI had to get up to 80 and then come down
yes, because
for
it's
on the 15.
yeah, because it's 1/4 the hour. You see what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah, okay.
So on the one
So
hour, you
so
only
on the
needed to
1 hour,
break the 50. Yeah, because it
break the
really,
50. Okay.
yeah, because that's the space you want the RSI on the 1 hour to give you enough space to make money. So no, and I'm going to show you when I talk about the 15. I'm going to show you where the 1 hour is, so it makes more sense, right? So
Yep.
this right here would be a trigger for a short position on this move here. And notice it's a double move. It's a pull down, it's a bounce, then it's a move down, right? Our moon comes in, our trend comes in, right? And here we see our trend come in. Now, when the trend comes in, now remember here, this trade here was without the trend. Now, if you send a trend alert, you're probably going to get the trend alert someone here, and you would realize that if that trend alert comes in, you would look down at your RSI and you say, you know what, I need this to bounce. And you would come to the situation where the trend hits. Now you have a double confirmation. You have a moon, you have a trend. And what happens here? Well, now you have the move where the trend pushes down, the RSI pushes up, and it's about to the 50 line right there, and it rejects. And then this is where you would take that next move. You see right there?
So that could be a second entry if you happen to get in on that early entry.
Yes. And these are crossings. Okay, let me move these.
Yeah. Okay.
Move these down here. All right. So when we have a line, here's your 50 line here. You want to be, and this is where understanding like what time frame you're on, right? When you're up in the 50 zone here, you're gonna have a nice solid pullback. For the 1 hour, as long as you're, I would say, breaking 30 to 50, that's probably about the area that you want to like be solid in, because you just want enough move to the
Okay.
downside, right? So anywhere in that zone there is going to be the area of saying, okay, if I'm breaking past the 30, right? That's where the 80 for us is the 15-minute. That it has to move that much to affect the 1 hour, and the 20 on the 15-minute means that it's pulled down far enough that the 1 hour has made enough move, right? When you're working on the 1 hour, you can get away with touching the 50, but you need to be at least breaking or rejecting off the 30 line, right? So how trades normally work is a lot of people will target the 80 line for rejection or support, and then it'll target the 20 for a rejection or support. Well, since the market makers know that you are targeting the 80 for support and the 20 for support, they push past these numbers so that you think that this is a breakout, and then they make an adjustment on you.
Gotcha.
Okay, so you,
Yeah.
you have to kind of play the little middle role. So for this, if you're pushing a long or a bounce, you want to get above the 20 because that's where they'll play you off the market. They'll kind of get in that zone, and you want to get to the point where if it breaks above the 30, then you have a nice pullback because a lot of times they'll try to find support not on the 20 but in between the 20 and the 0 because they're playing the market. They feel like if so let's say you're coming in here, and they want to get you into a fake move here, or a long, and you're like, okay, and it comes down, but it doesn't show support on the 20, right, which is what you would look for. Then you'd be looking for it to touch down here. And what they do is they take it out of there and say, oh, we're running, and then you get in, and then they say, oh, no, we're not. Okay, we're running, and then they try to get you to bite, And eventually they push up enough, and then the guy's like, okay, we're finally in, and then they shit on it. You see?
Right.
So once you understand that the market makers are using these other targets, which have been basically the last 100 years of trading, they're starting to adjust to it, right? So for us, if we can get to a 50 line, this is a very good max, but we want to at least touch the 30, right? If it's below that, I don't really worry about it. I just wait for the reset, right? But you should see this every time. So you want to get to the point where on the hour, you want to be above a 30 or reject the 30. But so just say basically on the hour, just 30 or above. That'd be the easiest way to look at it. 30
Okay.
or above on the 1 hour. That just gives you enough room to make money. Now here, we get our moon, we get our pullback, RSI pushes up, nice push, comes back. This time it pushes up, gets above the 30. But here, it doesn't push as high as the 50 because the trend hit. The trend is more volume to the downside. So there's the first move that it has. It pushes through. Then it bounces with the 1 hour RSI. And that's what you would be really looking for because you have a moon, you have a trend. So you need a bounce, right? So when you get that bounce again and it starts to, and this is where you guys have to focus on the money line, right? Focus on this line here because it's going to bend before the RSI. So once that tick happens there, then you know that you're in a downward trend at that point there. So you would be playing the move down on that RSI move right there. That's your second move there.
Right. So yeah, your first move there is when the negative volume retests the 0 line. There's your first move.
That's kind of
right
like
there.
that's like a pro tip. Like, oh, this has no, and this is where the key of understanding value, right? To me, I only like to do long. Okay, so if you go back to the original 1 hour trade, right? It's a 1 hour moon, a 1 hour trend, and positive value. It's the easiest way to do a long,
yeah.
right? So, and you can jump the 1 hour trend if you get a 2 hour moon, because the 2 hour moon is telling you that the volume is coming in hot, which will eventually turn the trend. So the 1 hour, the 1 hour trade is a 1 hour moon, a 1 hour trend, positive volume retest and enter, right? Or a 1 hour moon, a 2 hour moon, positive volume retest and an entry, right? But it's always the volume has to retest the 0 line, right? So that
was a 2 hour.
Yeah, and then we'll see here, like this is basically a moon and then a retest of the 0 line. It rejects. That rejection would let me know, especially with the 1 hour crossing down here, that I could take this trade because I'm above the 50. So it gives me enough room to go from the 50 to the 20 and bounce. But that'll make me money in that position, right? Because I'm expecting the support off the 20, right? So now you get that move. Yeah, but if you're waiting for the short, you would say, okay, moon and trend. Here's a moon and trend, right? The RSI bounces
Even if you
one
wait
time.
for the trend, it's 3.5% on that one.
Oh yeah. No, that's that's the beauty of the beauty of it is, once you master taking 50%, you'll start to realize that there's 5 trades happening in one trade. But if you take 50% each time,
like you're gonna be out of this with 50%, you're out of this pretty almost early on that move.
Yeah, you're eliminating risk, right? But if I get 4 trades out of it, I'm up 200% less risk. You see what I'm saying? But it also teaches you to follow a very simple structure every time that you can rely on. You see what I'm saying? So here, we're going to see the same things happen. When this pushes down and we have that trend, we wait. You can see right here, the volume rejects the red moon again and then starts to head down. That is your next entry. So now, but this would be the correct entry for a beginner trader. That's the difference. So this is the correct entry.
That's like, yeah.
For a beginner, because that's been tested, meaning moon, trend, RSI push, rejection, coming down, entry. Now we're in that trade. Now, the next trade that happens is you catch a green moon, right? This pushes the RSI all the way to the top. Now you get a red moon, our RSI is there, but guess what? You already have a trend, right? So now you've already got the second entry here, or if you took profits, now you have a new entry here. Because what happens here is it's already created the move to the down, test, and now it's coming down. Here, the green moon lets you know that it's given its last push. It pushes up, the RSI comes up with it, and then you can see here the volume starts to fade down. You see the RSI cross, you get an alert for a red moon, you take the entry, and boom, you hit it again.
So you wait for that red moon to come back for that entry.
Yeah, because I need confirmation. So no matter what happens, remember, we're operating off the moons for trade. For the trade is the moon, right? Now the bigger trade is the 1 hour moon. The intermittent trade is the 15-minute moon. You see what I'm saying? So the 15-minute moon allows you to work towards a 1 hour or operate within the 1 hour. But the trade that we want to operate with is the 1 hour moon, because that's our trend, right? The 1 hour moon lets us know which way the volume is going. The trend lets us know if it's confirmed. So here, even though we got a green moon, that just confirmed that there was a bounce in volume. The trend never went green. You see? So when the red moon came back,
right. So if you were in the like in the moment watching that, you'd be watching it to see if if you get a green trend, and then when you see the spinning top candle or you see that first red candle and the RSI cross down, you can kind of eliminate that as a possibility.
Right. And the other thing is this, right? I wouldn't make this trade in a long position because volume is nowhere near positive. You see what I'm saying?
Right. Okay.
Yeah, because we're bottom feeding right now. You see? So remember, the 1 hour trade is, and this is something I guess we could write it down, is I need a 1 hour moon, I need a 1 hour trend, I need positive volume. So the real key is this: 1 hour moon, 1 hour volume retest. Because if you have a 1 hour moon and a 1 hour volume retest, you're going to have a trend or a 2 hour moon that confirms the trade. So the first part is get me to a 1 hour moon with some positive value. That's like the first thing. I want to trade long. So if I want to trade long, what do I need? 1 hour moon and positive value. So here you have a green moon coming. I'm looking at it. That I know that's going to push back eventually because I have no value. So when the red moon hits,
right,
I already have a moon in a trend, and now I need negative value. I already have it.
Yeah. So on that next green moon, are you waiting till that volume goes all the way up to the positive, or is there a way to know that do you just wait for the green trend? And now you know that it's going to be a long.
Yeah. So the minimum is, if you get the green trend, right? That's why we have the minimum for if you're going to trade long, trade with the 1 hour trend, because that's going to give you the pumps in between the moons. You know what I mean? So the transition here is we're in a red trend. We take advantage of our short position, right? And now we're at the point where it has to get exhausted or go up eventually. So here we go. We catch another green moon, right? This time the 1 hour RSI is at the bottom. So it's probably a good chance here that you're going to get some type of jump here because this was a hell of a dip. And this is where guys get caught up.
Down.
Yeah, this is where a lot of traders get caught in the vortex because the sentiment is, well, shit, it's lost so much money. How could it go any further? So they pile in and start buying here. But this is really spot trading. This is where you would put a low leverage 10x, right? So if somebody's saying, yo, VC, I want to buy, like this is kind of like hodling, right? This is where you would use a 10x leverage and you would buy this huge dip because now you got a green moon, you got a RSI.
Good entry right there.
Yeah, you do a 10%, but you're going to hold this for a while because your next move is the end of the 1 hour trend, right? So you catch a 1 hour moon. What happens on the 1 hour moon? You get a move to the upside. What do we expect every time? A pullback, right? 2 moves. Now, if we're looking here and we see this push up and we say, okay, here's the moon, and I take that entry, The problem is you have to have a pullback. Now, how long is that pullback going to happen? We don't know. It could pull back to here before it starts up, right? It could pull back to here, could pull back to here, but your target would be the bottom of this last candle. So this is how you would make a decision. You'd go to the bottom of that candle and you say, okay, well, if I'm running up here and you see it hit, right? And you know there's a pullback, you say, okay, well, this thing could pull back 5%, right? So if you buy this RSI bottom and this 1 hour moon and you purchase here, right, which would put you somewhere at the top of the candle. And then during that push, it goes up 3-4%, right? Now, if you're doing a 10x leverage, you're up 30%, right? Puts you in a position where you can say, okay, my stop loss is set at 50, right? Which means that I can go on the other direction is I can literally go back if I need to. I can go back 10% and still have a 30% stop loss. So from here, this is why spot trading or like trading with very low leverage is safe, because you could go all the way back down to here and get caught in a liquidity grab. And all you would really do, just how we have that 2-trade entry, you would enter with your first trade here, just kind of an example of like how you could use this process that we're teaching. These would be position trades that you learn later, but you would get to where you would put your 40% buy here. And then on that pullback, your second entry would be here, right? So what would happen is it would create an average entry for you around here. And then you go on your run. So that's why we have that set up that way, to basically put you where you can use that same technique even on position trades later on that you learn. And what that'll do is give you a nice little protection plate. And then you go on this, position trade where you end up in this really big trade, right? So that's something you'll learn down the road. But just the concepts are always the same. There's a push, there's a pull, there's a run, right? So here, let's say you are working with 50% leverage. You come in, you catch a moon, you catch the RSI at the bottom, you see this big dip, and you go, okay, where could this possibly go? And then all of a sudden, you see this push to the upside, you get a pullback, and then it turns a green trend. Now, you enter your position right there, and you say, okay, I got everything that I wanted there. And I say, all right, I got my trend, 1 hour moon, 1 hour trend. Guys come along and say, okay, that for me would be a position where I can do a 50x leverage from here. But the problem is when you get that alert, you can't enter this first move here because your entry needs a push and a pullback. See what I'm saying? So when you get the alert that you have a trend and a 1 hour moon, the reason why we have positive volume as kind of like the protection there is because you cannot judge the pullback. You understand? This pullback could be a liquidity grab, which could go down 5%. So whoever gets in here is at risk of getting liquidated or at least knocked out of their trade just on this pullback. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's the mistake that most guys make.
Right. So how do we avoid that? We wait for the volume?
Well, yeah, the volume puts you in a safer position, right? That's the protection move, right? The second thing is when you go to make a trade, simply let the move to the up happen. And then when you find the entry on the pullback, right? So if you look down here, you have a moon, you have the push, it pulls back, you get a trend, right? Now, if you're paying attention, you had a push and a pullback and then an entry to a trend, which most guys will basically take this first move as the push and pull, right? And then go for this move. But the problem is the market makers know that that's what most people are going to do. So when they push up, you have no idea how much they can pull this down and grab more liquidity and then go on a move. So the right thing to do is see the moon, wait for your trend confirmation. You don't have volume confirmation yet, but then you catch a trend confirmation, right? So now you're 2 out of 3. So now the entry would be once that trade hits, as you watch the volume on the 1 hour push up, Now it's pulling back again, right? And here you go. So here, the same thing we have on the 1 hour on the opposite direction, you would be wanting for a 30% from the 100. So you'd be sitting at, you want to be where it's getting past the 80, right? Because that's the part that most people will play the 80 bounce here, right? You can see, but their RSI pulls deeper. So here's your 50. So here you'd be looking at where you'd want it to bounce something off like the 70 line. That's the support area for our 1 hour. So as long as it gets, past those 80s and 20s, right? Those are where you can kind of look at it and say, okay, I can play this reversal bounce here, right? That's where most people would say, okay, I'm going to take this entry here, right? Now, to me, you're still not in a safe position because you haven't broke positive volume yet. So can you make money there? Yes. But on a long, I don't really want to take that chance because it's harder to make a long go up than it is a down to go down, right? So for me, I would say this is where you say, you know what? I got my moon, I got my trend. I need positive volume here. That's what I need. So now let's mark this 1 hour moon real quick. I'm going to put this blue line here because I want to see if we're getting confirmation from our 2 hour, right? So let's go to our 2 hour real quick. And notice here, you don't have a green moon here, right? So the 2 hour confirmation is kind of like what we look for to confirm that there's actual volume coming into play or a push. So you see on this pullback here, this pullback catches a 2 hour moon here. That signals this pump. That's what that pump is right there, you see? So let me mark that 2 hour moon.
Oh, yeah, that's where the 2 hour moon came. Okay.
So if you set your alert and you say, you know what? I want to get in early here, right? And this is how, see, guys have to understand you can't just, you can't use feelings to make the trade. You have to have a systematic fucking decision. You know what I'm saying? So if you want to jump this trade, then your job is to go, okay, yo, VC, I got a green moon here. I got a 1 hour RSI at the bottom, and my 2 hour just crossed up. Now, personally, the way I trade, right, without the indicators was this. If I had a 1 hour coming off the bottom and a 2 hour cross, the moment I seen the 2 hour cross, I would be taking this dip. But I also know that I could look at the volume and realize that this is a pretty low ass point. My 1 hour and my 2 hour are both coming off the bottom. I would take an entry on this trade here and be shooting for a long hold on here with like a 30x leverage, right? So to me, I know that I can get this move here. But the safest way to trade is have a systematic approach every single time so that guys aren't just fucking winging it. So the systematic approach would be,
I need to get back to
yeah, you just have to have a step by step. So here we get a 1 hour moon and a 2 hour RSI and a 1 hour RSI crossing up, which is great. So the first decision would be for me when I see both these things happen is I'm going to wait for the move up, right? Then I'm going to buy this move down. And to me, I'm justified getting into this trade here because I got a pullback. Now the moon kicks off here and I get a 2 hour alert, right? So I would set my 2 hour alert and I could see that I'm getting it. That would justify then entry into this point here for this next move up. And then I would enter, this would be considered my first move. And then my second pullback would be this one. And I would enter the other 30% there. So 40 here, 30 here, and then I'd be on my way. You see what I'm saying? Now down the road, this is actually an opportunity if you're doing a longer trade. You see how this touches down here? You see this big pullback? See this?
Yeah. I was just looking at that one.
That would be my third entry. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so that blue line there would I'd be waiting and I'd be sitting here on my entry point and I'd say, okay, if it comes back and touches this entry point, I'm taking my third entry on this pullback. Now this could have been a bigger pullback. It could have been even deeper, but that's where I save my last 30% to basically, offset. Don't buy the 30%. This is why I was looking at the other day, like, don't cost average buy above your last entry because now you're cost average buying the wrong direction.
Right. bring it
This is what
down
I
if you're long
realized
already.
guys were kind of like doing as I was going through it. I'm like, man, you're actually buying against your own money, right?
Playing against your entry. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that was kind of like
So
the beauty of it. I spent like shit. I traded for probably about 30 hours. But sometimes when I'm really tired, I don't know. A lot of guys who followed me for a long
yeah.
time back in the day in 2001, we would trade 36 hours a day, and I'd be talking in my sleep. Y'all remember that? I'd be like, check that trade.
I mean, yeah, back in 21, yeah, yeah, that was perfect, man. I was overseas. I was overseas then,
Yeah.
so I was, my daytime was your night, so I was always up trading with you. It was awesome.
Yeah, we'd be sleeping and trading, and I wake up every hour like check that trade, you know. But that was
Yep, I
kind of like the
remember that,
concept.
VC.
Those were my daytimes. That was
Yeah,
great,
that's
man.
right. You were overseas. Yeah, that was kind of how it was. But then I realized when I was making these
Yeah.
trades, I'm like, why would you buy into a trade that hasn't broken your entry point? Because now you're actually lowering your profits. Because if it does go lower, it's actually going against you. And that's why when we're talking
So
go ahead.
on that big pullback that on the 2 hour there, where you're saying was a third entry,
Hmm.
I jumped over to the 1 hour, and that happens like right in between a red and a green. So you'd have to wait for that green moon to come back, right?
Yeah, exactly. So this is kind of like an
Yeah,
example when
yeah.
guys look at a trade, because the problem is everybody says everybody always wants to jump a trade, but and they don't understand the reason why I have certain things in place is because you have to eliminate the risk. This isn't about, being in a trade. This is about being in the best trade. So here, this is, and then what I'm kind of going over is why a normal trader, because I have some really new people and then I have traders. And traders have instincts that they want to follow because, like Carlos is always trying to, push that envelope. And I'm like, bro, you have to execute. If you push the envelope, you have to take profits. You can't extend if you push the profits. You can't extend if you push the envelope, right? And that's where, the understanding of, systematics is like, guys, you can't push past where you were. It's gonna do what it is. All right, let's record. Let's see. Oh, that trading view. Don't need that. But it can't push past like what it's going to do, right? So you have to understand that at some point you just have to put yourself in a position where when it makes its entry or whatever it does, it only does it so much. It can only do so much. And that's really kind of like the perk to understanding the system. You know what I mean? Like once you have that system in place, it does what it's supposed to do. And then you got to kind of like close out whatever you're doing, right? So let me piece this together here. Bam, bam. We're gonna take 120, 50, and we're gonna call it a day. There we go. And then once you hit your 150% profits, like here, magic. Like, do I think it's going to fall a little
Yeah,
bit more?
there you go.
Probably, but I got to take my 120%, right? So this is the trade we just went over. When I seen that reverse happen, I threw in $50. Now I've got my 100% profits, and I can move on with my life, right? So it's kind of like a basic thing. But what I realized was uh, the mistakes that most traders make, right, is the basics. So what I'm doing now is that's why I'm doing a kind of like a boot camp style with this video here, is simply because I understand that traders have a style and then they try to push it. And the reality is you're 50-50 on that, because or not even, you're like 30-70. You're playing against the house. House always wins. But the 30% of the time they're right, they're excited, but they forget about the 7 times they were wrong, which cost them everything, right? So you have to kind of have that, the understanding that, everything that we're doing, we're following a blueprint that allows us to safely trade, right? So in this particular moment, when that big pullback came down, I did get a 1 hour green moon. I did have the 1 hour, because people take the system and they take parts of the system and they're like, yo, VC, I did the 1 hour moon in the RSI. And like, well, where's the volume? Right? They like take pieces and then extend it into what we're doing. And it's like, now you're missing the whole piece, right? Let me get some of these tabs out of the way. I'm always 1,000 tabs in.
All right, I got about 30 minutes left here. Can we zero in on how to enter?
Yeah, so for you, it's just the same scenario, right? As we move forward, we're always looking for the positive volume, right? So we have trades in here that we're going to kind of piece out. We have our 1 hour moons, our 1 hour RSIs. They push up, they bounce. You get a 2 hour moon that lets you know that you have a stronger push on that. So this is where if you're taking a chance, that would be your first entry. Your second entry would be coming here, right? Which would be that bounce right there. Now this happens after the trend,
Right. And so
1 hour
then,
moon, 1 hour trend. Yeah. So now the safest trade in this pocket of a zone would be basically just waiting for the 1 hour volume to come along. And you can see here we have our pushes to the top that comes way down, does a liquidity grab, and then we start to march up and then we crack the volume. Here is where once we break that positive volume, now you can wait on the volume to pull back, get yourself an entry right here, and then you're pretty much on this big run, right? So that's kind of like the basis of protecting. Once you see the volume go positive on the 1 hour, now you're in the zone of you have a little bit of safety here on your long position because now it's at least cracking volume. And you can see the volume breaks up, rejects, breaks up, and you can see the higher highs in your volume. And then as soon as it breaks positive, we're in a nice little zone here, right? So that's where if you're going to do longs, you have to at least confirm a 1 hour moon, a 1 hour trend, and then you need the volume to come in, right? Which would be this, right? Same scenario. 1 hour moon comes in, 1 hour trend comes in, right? The RSI pushes up on a move to the top, right? Which is where we get to here. Then the 1 hour RSI pulls back. And that's why I'm always telling you guys, let the 1 hour RSI reset. You see? Now, if you're
well,
playing the
yeah, and the same thing with the 15 too, right? You want to let the
yes,
15 reset for your entry. Yeah.
exactly. So here, if we play the
Yeah.
trade, it would be this 1 hour moon, 1 hour trend. 2 hour moon confirms the first big pump. So now we have volume coming behind us. Here's the first pullback on the 2 hour. Then we get the RSI push. Now all we do is wait for the 1 hour RSI to come all the way back down and see what the volume does. It rejects the 1 hour moon with plenty of space. Because of that rejection, we could actually get to a point where this, when the RSI crosses up and the volume crosses up, this is where we could take the first trade that we're getting into because we already have the moon, we have the trend, the RSI comes to the bottom. Here's your entry for your long move. And now you're in the right trade working your volume up. So if you're going to jump a trade, you have to let the basic structure play out, right? First push up, the first 1 hour RSI pushes up. We don't have positive volume yet, which means what? There's going to be a pullback. So let the first pullback pull back. And then when the 1 hour RSI crosses over again and you see the volume pushing up, then you can jump this trade and go for now. Now, this is where I would start looking at the 1 hour entries going, this is the section that I think is going to be the best time to trade the 1 hour inside the 1 hour. You see what I'm saying? But that all came about with
Yep.
the basic cycle that we're always following. Push up on the 1 hour RSI. Here's the push. Let the 1 hour RSI pull back. And now this is where this zone here is where we look for longs, right? I don't need the positive volume in there at that time because I already see it happening right here with this rejection. That's the early sign. Now I'm working with the RSI pushing up. I have momentum with me now. So more than likely, the momentum to the upside is going to break the positive volume. But this is the earliest entry that you can take on the 1 hour as a long position. It has to happen with a 1 hour moon, a 1 hour trend, an RSI bump to the top, a pullback, and then when the 1 hour RSI crosses the 20 line, then this would be the section that you start your long positions to the upside. Okay? And it should be like that every single time is when we look at it and somebody says, well, I went long. Okay, let me find the 1 hour moon. Let me find the 1 hour trend. Let me find the 1 hour RSI retouch the bottom. Okay, so the very first time you should have started is here. So you started long here. All right, you blew that.
That's the 2 hour. Are we
Oh yeah, let
looking
me
at
go. Let
two
me
hour
slide my
two?
1 hour. No, no, let me slide the 1 hour.
Sorry.
You're good. You're good. Good. Right. So let me slide over here. So here's your 1 hour. Right. 1 hour moon.
Yeah, yeah.
Get our 1 hour trend. So here's our moon. Here's our trend. Right. Comes up. RSI breaks. You gotta let the RSI touch the bottom. Our RSI touches our bottom. Fights through. Oh yeah, you're right. That's a 2 hour side. Here you go. Pushes across. Pushes
So
across.
yeah, you get a red moon and a trend there, so you shouldn't be in any longs right there until you get the green moon to come back. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Always. Always.
Yeah.
So here I'm gonna mark this out my 2 hour. So here we get. Let me see. Okay, gotcha. All right. So here we have this 2 hours. Here's your 2 hour RSI pullback, right? And we'll actually note that out.
Yeah.
But here you come along, you get a push up, your RSI is coming down, you're waiting for it to touch, right? Starting to fight through here. Now here we're getting bounces here, and these are trades that you can look into here. These trades are all winning here, right on the 1 hour. Right here we're going to break, but notice we're not breaking across. And this point we catch this moon here, right? Now we always do you remember the moon resets, right? So the
Yeah.
the moon resets are always like my favorite trade. What a moon reset, guys, is when a green moon goes green and then the trend goes green. The trade that I want to get into all the time is when the moon goes against the trend, and then it turns back into the trend. Right there.
You're talking about that green right there. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the
The
one you want to be on.
yeah, the moon reset. So the moon goes green, the
Yeah.
trend goes green. The moon goes against it,
Before the trend comes. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then you get the green moon. And that's always a great trade to get because that's the momentum trade. That just happens to go with that 2 hour trend as well. So it's a bonus right there. But normally you want a testing of the
So
value.
on right, and on that one, so I feel like normally you're waiting for that green trend to confirm, but since it's a reset, do you jump it?
Yeah. Well, then as soon as you get that alert, as long as the RSI is coming up with you right here on the 1 hour, you're good.
Yeah.
So here's your 1 hour
Okay.
coming up, your 1 hour moon hits, you already have your trend, you're in that trade. Now, the other one is this, right? So positive volume on the 1 hour, right? This is what we kind of like look at. Positive volume broke up, positive volume retested, right? There's your entry point right there.
Yeah. So there's another entry point. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's
On
kind of
that
like
retest.
that's kind of like your safe entry right there. So that right there could be your first entry point into where you're going because that's like the beginner's entry. The beginner's entry is all right, waiting for positive volume, moving across positive volume, positive volume. I don't have it yet. Here's the green moon again. That's good for me. Okay, positive volume broke, positive volume retested. It showed support. Okay, now, if a guy's looking at it, goes, well, okay, let me the 1 hour reset, which is completely fine. He lets the 1 hour pull back, right? Gets to the 50, starts to head up, puts his entry here. See?
That's okay. There. That's that entry.
So now the reason why we have it set up the way we have it now is because if a guy gets in and makes an early entry and doesn't, because you never know with this push. Sometimes you get a big one, sometimes you don't. But he catches this first little piece here. This first entry is 40%. The second entry's in is 30%. And now he's on a move and he doesn't have to re-enter unless he breaks below his second entry, right? Now in this case scenario, let's say that he gets to the point where he says, all right, I'm gonna let the 1 hour go below the break the 80 line. Comes down here, starts to bounce. He takes this as a first entry point, right? And then on his second one, let's see, we put this there. He waits
Sorry,
for
go ahead.
you're good. He waits for the pullback where he gets in here where the 1 hour hits here and starts to go up. So now this becomes his first entry point here. See what I'm saying? See how the 1 hour
Yeah, so
bounces there?
I just jumped over. I made a line and jumped over to the 15. So you don't get a 15 green moon until that RSI reset right there that you were just talking about.
This one right here.
Not that one, the one before it.
Yeah, here.
The one before it. Right
Yeah.
there, you get a 15-minute green moon.
Mhm.
So that's a confirmation for that's your entry right there, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But see, when you understand that you're making a 1 hour trade, you're just using the 15-minute for the entry.
Right, and I think that's been part of my problem is identifying where the entry is supposed to be. Like I can identify the trade on the 1 hour, and then I have a harder time identifying where the right entry is.
So what we can do here is kind of make these quick notes, right? So on a 1 hour trade, right? You want a 1 hour moon, a 1 hour trend, and you want positive volume retest, right? So that's the basics. Okay. Now the push of the 1 hour, or to confirm volume in a good direction, would be a 2 hour moon to let you know that volume is picking up, and then the 2 hour RSI reset, right? So those are two major points that during the first,
ABC, you cut out after 2 hour moon.
oh,
Yeah, I
2 hour
was just
moon.
gonna say
2 hour, yeah, 2 hour
after
moon,
Confirmation.
right? 2 hour moon will give you confirmation that volume's picking up, but letting the 2 hour RSI reset or push down and then start back up again lets you know that that's where you should start looking for the bigger long position at that point. So those are two little
so.
things. So
Another question.
mhm.
Yeah, another question on that entry there. So that 15-minute green moon hits, but the 15-minute RSI is right around the 50 line. So do we wait for that RSI to reset, or do we go ahead and enter there?
No, you can enter there as long as it's below the 80.
As long as it's below the 80. Okay.
Yeah. Because remember, that's your first
Yeah, that's
entry.
my note. We gotta add that to the checklist here.
Yeah. As long as it's below the 80. So as long as you have room for it to push. Because remember, the 15-minute can get pinned to the top.
Right. Well, yeah, and the 3-minute happens to get pinned all the time.
Yeah. So as long as it's below the
Below
80,
80.
yeah. Because my second entry is
So
going to
then, if
be,
we were
remember, the second entry is going
if
to
we were
be,
looking for a short there, if we were looking for a short on that, the RSI on the 15, we're looking for it to be above the 80.
yeah, you want to be, yeah, you want it, well, you want it crossing. You need it to be crossing. So coming down on it.
Right. So if it was coming down, as long as it was above the, is there a threshold where even if it's coming down, we're not entering a short?
Yeah, I mean, I have to, like, on the short side, you want it to be at least around the above the 50 mark.
Right. So headed down, but above the 50.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just trying to make sure my checklists here
Yeah,
are
and a lot of
complete.
times, like that, the RSI, like where the 15-minute is at that time, is not going to be caught in those middle trades, right? And you can always, like, if you look at it and you're below the 50, I always use the 50 on the lower time frames as it's like, it doesn't take much for it to go where it's going and then come back, right? So that's kind of like that middle play. But a lot of times you're not going to see that because most of the time it's going to be, if you're doing a short properly, it's been pinned to the top. You see what I'm saying? The most of the time, you're not even going to notice that.
Well, yeah, I see what you're saying. The 15's pinned when you're entering the short.
Yeah, you want to be taking a
Yeah.
short on a pump, so the pump should have pinned the 15.
Yeah.
The only time you'd
Yeah.
worry about taking a second entry on the 15-minute RSI would be your second bag, right? And if it's not
Right.
breaking,
That'd be the
yeah,
only time you'd be.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
So
the only time it wouldn't be pinned. Would be on the second or third
right,
entry.
yeah. Then I would be like, as long
Yeah.
as to me, I'd say, yeah, if it at least gets to the, to like above the 50 line, I have room to come back down, right? Because you want to be greedy on that second entry, because that's your protection entry. You know what I mean? Like I'd want this RSI to at least break above the 50 area before it starts to head back down, before I make my second entry. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
the first entry, you should always be coming off the top. Because you should be, I mean, the only time you're taking a pullback is if the trade has been, pumping. So on the overall, when you look at the 1 hour, just basically for the 1 hour longs, you just want a 1 hour moon, a 1 hour trend, and you want positive volume retest, right? That's really where we want to move. And the way to get the second volume move is if you end up getting a moon reset. So if you end up with a 1 hour moon and a 1 hour trend, and it's pushing and then starts to pull back, and you end up getting a red moon that then goes back into a green moon, you can take the entry on that green moon alert for that second move up. because that one's going to be the early entry to the volume retest. So that entry point would be, if you were taking that moon reset, it would be somewhere down here. And then
Yeah,
the
that's the
moon,
early.
yeah, then the moon reset comes in. Your second entry actually gets bounced and it becomes here. Right? But if you're following the basics, then you get to the point where, okay, I'm just going to let the volume pass over. It's going to break down. It's going to retest. Now I'm getting my first entry here. Now, the thing that you can look at is that you have a moon reset, right? The moon, green trend, red moon, back to green moon. So you know there's a pump. You buy the retest, which is the safest entry because it always has to have a pullback, right? So here's the moon retest. Pushes up, pulls back. That's your first entry. Then from there, you have your next pullback, which happens here, which is basically where you get this pullback. And now here's your second entry there. So what you're always looking at when you decide to make your decision is like, where is my pullback? Okay, here's positive volume, first entry. Volume pushes up, pulls back again, second entry. You see? First entry. Then the next move down comes here, second entry. Those are your two entries. Your third entry is basically if you break below your second entry. So that's how to look at how to trade your 1 hour long position. You see what I'm saying? So if you don't have this basic format here going long, then I wouldn't go for a long at this time. You see what I'm saying? Because those longs are not going to be,
Wait for it to play out.
yeah. I mean, I want to be in the best trades possible. Now, can we make money in all these trades here? Yeah, we can make money in all these longs here. But they're more, there's more risk in these trades. But the reason why we have the 50% profits and the protection and all that is that, that you can make money in these trades. All these trades made money. Like if we looked at these trades and we're like, okay, here's our points of entry, right? If we went here and we entered this pullback and took that trade's 3%. We took this pullback, took that trade, 3%. So all these trades make money. Like you see, trade there,
Yeah, but higher risk.
Yeah, they're all 3%. So the best part about the system is you can make money even if you're making mistakes. Like you will be able to make money. The point of the system is to give you a 3% trade, and you're taking 50% leverage, which means you need 2% to reach 100%, right? But you only need one.
So you can still mess up.
Yeah, you just need 1/3 of the possibility. 1/3 of the possibility is what? A 1% move, which is a 50x leverage, which gives us what? 50% gains. So even in a tough scenario, you're still able to squeak out and get lucky. Even if you took this trade here, it's 1.2%. This trade here, 1.2, right? So either way, you would have hit 50% here. A 50x leverage was a 1%. You'd have hit every single time, right? But if we have the basics where we're trading into the best possible trades, right? So this right here is the 2-hour RSI breaking up, and then while we're waiting for the 1 hour volume to go positive, it comes all the way back down, and then the 2 hour starts to head back up, and then all of a sudden we start to see the volume on the 1 hour push up. But because that 2 hour RSI has done a reset, the second move on that 2 hour reset is actually stronger. So if I'm doing a long, I want the 2 hour RSI to do a reset. So this is kind of like a boot camp tip, the pro tip off the boot camp. If I'm doing a long, so when you see me call a long position, or if I do alerts, right? So when we get into the alpha side of Discord, then I'm doing coin alerts. I'm doing coin alerts off of this strategy. The strategy is once I have 1 hour confirmation with a moon and trend, I want a 2 hour RSI reset, and then I go for the longer long position, right? But this is something when you guys are coming into the intro, you can kind of like understand before you decide to start going to do long positions, right? You can go look and say, okay, I'm going to get into longs on this coin once that 2-hour RSI does a reset. And now you're trading with the best possibility. All right, because you have a 1-hour moon here. You have a 1-hour trend here, right? Now you need positive volume, which happens here. Here's positive volume right here. So if you're just doing the basic and you say, okay, I need a 1-hour moon and trend and positive volume, then this is the area that you would be getting in.
Yep.
So that kind of like, this is the rookiest, safetiest trade.
So can we, you there, VC?
Yeah. You hear me?
Yeah, okay. Can we zoom in on that one you just circled and show where the entry would be on the 15 and the 3?
Yeah, so here. So now when we go back, once we get, so we got a 1-hour moon, we got a 1-hour trend, right? 1-hour moon. We finally break positive volume, right? And this is beginning where we get a moon reset, which happens right here, right? And then that moon reset kind of triggers where we'd be looking. But let's move this here and say, okay, this would be the best time to make the trade, right? So now slide over to the 15-minute. So now that we've kind of like broke this down into the 15 side, now all we really need is the 15-minute to do the trade, right? So these 15-minute moon trades happened all throughout the system, and we'll work backwards. So now that we're in the part where we're in the best scenario here, which is the moon pullback, positive volume, everything going right. This is that pullback to the 1-hour volume. Here's a retest right here, right? This is the moon reset. This is the retest, right? So now you slide over here, and this is, look at the basics, right? What do we need to do along, right? So in this position here, what we need right here is we have a 15-minute moon, we get a 15-minute trend, right? We get our first push, we get a pullback. There's the first entry, right? So if let's say like you're playing that 15-minute zone there, right? You wait for positive volume to happen. You're going along, and all of a sudden here, you get your red moon. So you're waiting.
I see.
The 1-hour volume retest and starts to bounce here, right? You see your RSI, 15-minute RSI at the bottom, it starts to curl up there, right? Now you're looking, and all of a sudden right there, you can see how this 15-minute volume test here. See how it breaks positive and retests right here? And then starts to move up right there. Now you should get an alert on this moon right there. You should be getting this alert, which would confirm at this moment that you should be getting a positive move. RSI coming off the bottom, coming up, 15-minute moon retest the volume, right? There's your retest right there. Now that's the point where you would be looking, okay, I get an alert. You're going to get an alert on this candle, which puts you at a point where entry wise, you'd be looking, okay, moon alert, here's your move. There's the first entry right there. See?
So in this case, you're not waiting for the 15-minute trend.
You already have it.
Okay. Yeah, I see that.
Yeah. So now this is the point that we wanted to cover. So when you trade the 15-minute trend and moon, okay, it gets you ahead of the 1-hour trade, right? Now watch the breakdown. Okay. Now to trade the 15-minute, right? What would I need? I need a 15-minute moon. I need a 15-minute trend, right? Now, watch how this works. 15-minute moon breaks positive volume. It retests, okay? That retest is normally where I would be looking to entry, but I let my RSI reset, right? So now I go along, RSI resets, comes down here. What happens? I catch an RSI red moon, starts to head up. I can see that I'm retesting again. But now that I let this retest happen from the 15-minute moon and the 15-minute test, just like on the 1-hour, right? We let it push up, and then we let that 1-hour RSI reset, right? And then during the 1-hour RSI reset, what happened? We got a red moon. But then it turned into a green moon again, remember, on the 1-hour to the moon reset.
Right.
So it happened
So
exactly
here's the
the
15
same way.
minutes. Yeah,
Yes. So
exactly.
exactly the same. Pushes up. This is where we would look to get our first entry, would be right here normally. But since the 15-minute RSI is already at the top pushing up, that would be the thing. So now here's the thing, right? So let's say if we change this and a guy says, okay, 15-minute RSI or 15-minute moon, 15-minute trend. I see the push up, right? So here's his first push, 15-minute push, right? Then it pulls back. That creates the first entry. Now, how can he systematically, confirm this entry? The volume pushed up and it did a retest. That confirms that entry.
Yeah.
Okay. Now he lets the push up. Now what he has to do is what? He needs the 15-minute RSI to hit the bottom. Okay. Now when he lets it hit the bottom, what does that confirm? That confirms the second 15-minute. See right there. This pullback confirms. See how the 15-minute doesn't reach the bottom?
Right. It doesn't meet the zero line.
Right. Which creates the momentum saying, okay, well, this is probably moving up. Now you have a red moon here, right? But you're also looking at the test. So now your RSI is moving up. So then you're like, all right, I need confirmation here. Here's your red moon. So you're waiting. Volume breaks up again, does another retest. You take that retest and say, okay, there's my second entry right there. 15-minute RSI is heading up. I got to retest the volume. Now I'm in again. Now you're playing the 15-minute moon reset. Moon, red, green. So green moon, green trend. Red moon, green trend. Green moon, back into the moon reset. Here's your second entry right here. Now, your next entry doesn't come in or your third entry doesn't happen unless you break below your second entry.
Right. Don't enter above your last entry.
Right. So now that's how you can justify a guy who's jumping it early. You see, the whole point of having the system is that if guys jump early, they're still protected. Now, let's take a guy who's like more technical. He sees that he has a moon, it breaks to a trend. He waits for the RSI, 15-minute RSI to reset, right? Because he's waiting for the volume to retest. Sees the volume retest, doesn't like his RSI. He waits for the RSI to hit the bottom. It hits the bottom, then he gets the green moon. His first entry moves a little bit differently to where he gets an entry here. Okay, so now his entry ends up being here, right? Then what happens is he gets his entry, it's pushing up, he gets his green moon, he takes an entry off of here, first entry. Now he lets his RSI play out, comes all the way back down, right? Here is where he would be looking at his next entry, would be here, okay? Now he's at the point where his next entry, if it's below his current entry, would be the next move. What happens here? It pushes up. It doesn't get where it needs to go. He ends up hitting a red moon. The pullback comes down to here, which is the original first entry. You see? This is where the guy would put his third entry because he had to. See?
Yep.
That's why we're in this side of the protection side, because now if he ended up catching that second move and he's a little bit late on that first one, that third entry comes in, and now what happens is it averages entries into here, and now it goes on that big run. See what I'm saying? Now the difference is this guy, even though he ended up having to take that third entry, remember, the other people are in at 70% of the bag. He's in at 100% of the bag, and he's going to hit 50%. So now he catches this entry, catches this pullback, has to do a third entry on another pullback, and then he goes off of that big run.
Right.
So either way, everyone. Now, if this guy took this first entry, don't forget we're only doing 50%, right? So now you come over here, you look at here, he hit 50%. Okay. Now, if he watches this pullback and he jumps in again, right? This is the one where he needs at least a 1% move. He doesn't get his 1% move, right? And now the pullback is set up at 0.72. So if he's doing a 50x leverage, he would actually get stopped out here, you see? Because if he
Yeah, and that pullback before the pump.
right, so if he took advantage of this move here, he would have hit his 50%. And then he thought he had a second move here. If he wasn't paying attention, right, and this looks good here. The RSI is at the bottom. It's coming up. There's a push here, but all of a sudden, people took profits. You never know when they're going to do that. But they panicked and took profits here. And he got dumped on. So he ends up losing that second trade. Comes back, tracking it. He sees the third trade. The RSI comes to the bottom, sees its fine volume. And what would happen is, if he's following, he'd let it push up. And then the retest would be his third entry. He would buy here. So now he'd be re-entering on the green 15-minute green moon, you see? So let's say he got this first trade. He won 50%. He sees the pullback. He gets in on this trade. They dump on him. He doesn't care because he's doing his 10 trade review. So now he says, all right, you bastards, I'm going to wait for the next one. So now it's still showing positive movement because don't forget, we're inside of the beautiful thing about trading in the 1 hour trading zone is that you can be confident that you're still in the 1 hour trading zone, which means your longs are still on your side. So now when that you lose this trade here, you see this big pullback, you see that the volume supports the 1 hour, the 15-minute RSI is at the bottom, you should be getting in on the trade right here and catching the move, but you're disciplined and you're going to go, you know what? I'm going to let this pull up. And as soon as it retests, I'm going to get in. And then as it retests, it starts to move to the upside. And you're like, as soon as I get a moon alert, and then you catch the moon alert right here, you get into your next entry. And then all of a sudden,
entry. And then you get in on the pump there.
You get in on the pump. Now that same thing, let's work back because we're inside the zone. And this is trading on the best possible area of the zone, right? So now as we kind of go over here, I want to show you the 15-minute entry prior to the 2 hour RSI reset, prior to the 1 hour moon retest, okay? So now let's rotate to the beginning of this trade to see how we fare. Now remember, the beginning of this trade is basically the 1 hour moon and trend, which is right here, okay? So you get a 1 hour moon and trend, right? Here's your 15-minute moon, right? What do you need to make the trade? You need a 15-minute moon, a 15-minute trend, positive volume, right? So trend comes in, here's your 15-minute, it pumps up, right? It makes its move to the downside, you see right there. This catches you where it looks like it wants to be a good trade, but you want to watch your, what do you have to do? You have to let your 15 minutes, so here's your green moon, here's your green trend. What do you need to do? You need to let the 15-minute RSI hit the bottom for protection. All of a sudden, if you're not paying attention, you see the pump. Most traders will buy this pullback, and guess what? It goes up, and then they wreck them. Okay?
Then you get then the real pullback happens.
Right. Now, for you guys, you get a green moon, green trend, volume pushes up, you're waiting for the retest. While you're waiting for the retest, you're waiting for the 15-minute RSI to hit the bottom. It finally hits the bottom. It plays out into a green moon, right? Now you have a 15-minute moon, 15-minute trend. Now you have a possible moon reset because now you have a red moon and a green trend. So now the pullback goes. You see here that you're starting at the 15-minute RSI to the top. Now you can see here, now you have another retest. Here's the push, right? Always look for the double move. Then it comes down. That's where you would be looking to get it because now on this push, you've confirmed a retest. See, the retest. Always confirm the retest. So this, if you're a good trader.
So when it starts to push back up.
Yeah, on that
retest. The volume
retest.
starts to push back up there with the RSI, you can jump it before that green moon because you have a green trend and it's a reset.
Right. Now let's say that you wait for the alert to happen, right? The alert is going to happen on this candle. Yeah. So either way, you're going to get in here. Okay. So still in a good position. So it doesn't matter. Let's say you wait for the moon.
If you were if you were waiting for that alert and you got that moon alert there,
Mhm.
are you then watching it for that? Because see how the RSI pulls back there? Are you watching, waiting for that, or do you just
Yeah.
go in
So
there?
let's say that you get the moon alert, right? This is
Yeah.
a trader that jumps the trade wrong. This is a trader that jumps the trade correctly. And then you have our systematic trader, right? He's going to do this. He's going to wait for the moon to hit. He's going to wait for the volume to break positive. He's going to wait for the retesting
Yeah.
of that volume. And then he's going to enter here,
Right. Which is yeah.
right?
That's what I was looking at as being the system entry right there. Okay.
Yeah. Now you get your 15-minute pullback here. It bounces for you. And now that you've already gone through the first positive volume test, it's staying positive, and now you got a moon reset. The reason why you don't need this RSI to go all the way to the bottom on the moon reset is because you've already done a reset on the first part. So what you were doing here is you're just going through, your trend hasn't changed, right? So this is where understanding where you're at in a trade. The fact that we've already had a positive, we had the first move here. We let the RSI reset. The volume came down, came up, fought it, broke up again. This is the second test of that move, right? That's the part of it. It's the second test of the volume. So now with the second test, I don't need my RSI to go all the way down because it's stronger now. The volume, the momentum is here, right? So I don't expect it to go to the bottom. I expect it to break below the 80, maybe touch the 50, and then bounce. But my entire thing is to get an ideal of where it is as soon as I see the retest, that's where I'm going to make my entry because the retest here would be the move. So my entry would be somewhere here on this candle because we would see this pop up on this next candle and this RSI would start to move
Right. You
up.
get somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that would be
Makes
our
sense.
entry. Now, the reason why we don't need the RSI to go all the way to the bottom at that time is because we have momentum. We've already had positive volume. Now, if I don't have a mountain of positive volume before it goes negative and then comes back, then I want my RSI to go all the way down, right? It's like building layers. Once I have one possible trade happen, the next time it's possibly going to happen, I don't need everything to do 100%, but I need it to at least make the actions, right? So here we had the action of the push and the retest, right? We let the RSI reset. Now it comes up. We see this big pullback. Now the push up. Now we see the retest. I don't need the RSI to go all the way to 100 because I've already seen it on the prior move. So now all I need is a retest of the 15 and the 0 line, which happens here. And then when I get the confirmation of both of them going up again, now I know that this push is going to be is basically set up because the first pullback has lost its momentum down, and now the next pullback will not be as much. Otherwise, the volume wouldn't retest. Get it? If this pullback was going to be further, then there wouldn't be a moon, and this would be going. It wouldn't bounce. It would just keep going down, which would basically mean I would have to wait until it reset again.
Yeah.
Right? So that's kind of like learning the momentum of a trade. So now that's the first trade that you get into, and now you're looking for another retest, right? So here's your RSI goes up, comes back down, starts to cross over. I wouldn't take that right there. I would look for another pullback. So here's the first pullback. It doesn't go, doesn't completely reset, pushes up, shows some weakness, comes back down, and then shows momentum here. That is where I would take my second entry on that move there. Because it's already done. It's pulled back, didn't go as far as I wanted, came back again, and now it's pushing up. I would take that second move because we're getting to the end of the move right there, right? Now, if we look at this positioning here, if we get in this trade here, we only need a 1% win to get our percent. So at the end of the day, this actually would have topped out at a 1% move. You would actually made your 50% profits before the second entry. Now, keep in mind,
Yeah.
that's where we started to look at it, and I was like, you know what? When you first start out, right? The ideal was this: set your profits to 100%.
For the first entry, for the first 40%.
Yeah. So that way, if you
Yeah.
don't, if it jumps on you and goes crazy, then you get 100% of your 40, which is basically your 50% trade, right? But once you
Right.
enter your second trade, which is here, you would then move your profits down to 50. And what would happen is when you made that second trade, let's say at that current time, you were sitting at 50%, okay, profits. When you make that second entry, you're taking out of your profits because you're adding more money. So that point, you would be at a 25%, and you would actually have to move to this level here to get 50% gains. Right? So when you add money, let's say if you put $100 in and it's up 100%. If I put another $100 in, now it's only up 50% because I've doubled my money.
Right.
So my profits get cut in half.
Yep. That makes sense.
So that's why the two move is this. When you enter your first trade, right, you have a 50% stop loss, 50% profit. We just basically, we wanted to teach guys how to move their take profit with the stop loss so they can get used to that. But then we were like, that's probably a little bit too much in the beginning. So if we just started with 50% stop loss and 100% profits, then if the first entry hits 100%, then we did our job anyways, right? But once you enter that second trade and you enter that other 30%, you move your profits from 100 down to 50 because you added more money. So you only need 50% to get what we came for. So that's the easiest way to do it without trying to move the sliders or figure out how to move your stop loss. But when a guy first starts, he's just learning basic in and outs. So he can do a 50 stop loss, 50 profits, right? And then once he hits that over and over and over, then we start adjusting his first entry and say, okay, put 100% profits. Now, when you make that second trade, move 100% profits back down to 50. But that's step two. You know what I mean? So first thing is, okay, 50%, 50, 50, 50, easy to learn, right? All right, when you're first starting, guys, you need to do the 50, 50, 50. 50% leverage, 50% stop loss, 50% profit. Let's go. That's how it is. Step one.
All right, I gotta hop off, man. For the tracking my trades, I gotta take down how far negative it goes, entry, the leverage, and wherever I get out. Anything else?
No, I mean for that, it's basically let me turn this off real quick here. So lowest it went and highest it went.
Highest it went. Okay. Highest and lowest.
Highest and lowest, right? So let's say, and that's because of this, right? So let's say after 10 trades, you're like, yeah, it goes. Normally, I go 23% negative to 55 to where our 50% stop loss. So it normally goes negative 22%, 35%. I'm in between 25 and 35, right? Now we know we need to fix our entries, right? And then the highest it goes, like every single time, it's like, I'm averaging about 30, 40%, right? So if you get to 37, 42, 37, 52, right? All we have to do is change your leverage from 50 to 65. And now you're hitting 50% every time. So that's what it is. So the first thing is once you have the basic set up, we're going to cover another video on how we're going to upgrade and change the leverages as we move forward. So that way you guys are basically making adjustments to win. So we can make adjustments on these trades. But so far, right now, with data from everybody, we'll be able to find the medium of where we need to be on leverage, the perfect leverage, and then the way that the entries that we need to just take every single time. Right? Because remember, the ideal is to take the worst guy and fix him so that everyone else can do better.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, man. I gotta get the kids dinner.
Get them dinner, brother. I recorded this. I'm gonna throw it into the
All right.
into there for us. But did that help you out, man? Make more
Yeah,
sense.
appreciate it.
Yeah, brother. All right, man. Have a good one, man. We'll talk
Yeah.
later.
You gotta stick to the system.
Yes.
All right.
Later,
ya.
brother. All right, guys. So so from there, that's where we want to be. Just basically covering the same thing, doing the same process. So every time we have a classroom, every time we cover trades, everybody has the same process. So go back over this video here and watch the entries, right? So if you're going to trade longs, right, the very first thing is if you do longs, you want a moon and you want at least a 1 hour trend in your favor, right? You want at least a 1 hour trend heading at least green to do longs, right? You want a moon, the moon goes back and forth, but in order to do a long, the very first thing is wait for the 1 hour trend. Then you can trade longs in there, right? For the strongest 1 hour long, you want the moon to reset or the 2 hour RSI to reset. But just to get into longs, minimum is the 1 hour trend, right? Does anybody have any questions on that? That makes sense,
Hey,
guys?
PC, this is Gus.
Gus, where you been, bro?
Good. You know, busy. Just driving a little bit today.
All right.
Hey, PC, can I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
Last Saturday, did you have a video on the night time? But it's no longer, I cannot see it anymore. The one that you were trading live and you were doing all the entries was Saturday night. Do you mind sending it to me, please?
If we didn't, so what you'd want to do here is like the video that we do right now. I'm gonna send this one to you.
No, Saturday. It was a Saturday night. I think it was just you.
All right, I'll look for. You talking about this Saturday?
Yes.
Are you talking about when I was trading Magic that night?
Yes, that one.
Yeah. That should be on the. That should be inside of there. It doesn't have any sound on it because I was watching movies, but I was just circling little things.
No, that's another one that you have. That was on Sunday. The one on Saturday, you were trading live, and you were doing entry 1, entry 2. You were like a step by step to go to 1 minute and 3 minutes and go back to 1 minute to search.
Oh, you're talking about the volume. Yeah. So we're gonna cover that here, man. I'm gonna cover that here. So this will be at the end of this video. I'm gonna cover all that right now. So right now we were just going through the basics of, for Cal to break it down the new system in there, right? So we're gonna actually get into the volume right now. So the of how to see the volumes, right? So I wanted to start with the 1 hour so that you guys can see that when you're trading here, it's the same system, just different time frames, right? So Cal had to go, but we're gonna keep going here. So I'm gonna get into what you're talking about right now. So any other questions, guys, before I move on?
That was a really good video.
Yeah. I'll go. I'm gonna go through that same stuff right here. So anybody, as far as so far, go ahead, Gus.
Thank you.
So is there any questions on what we just covered, guys, or starting to make a little more sense to you?
I missed most of it. Can you start again?
Oh my God, this guy Alf. Somebody kick him. What's up, brother?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I've just come back.
Yeah, so I'm gonna do a quick. Go ahead, Stelios.
Everything makes sense.
I'm only playing VC.
I know.
I've just come back. I heard a little bit earlier. I heard you talking about like early entries. I hope we weren't talking about me. Because I take my early entries very responsibly.
the early Alf entry. Yeah, that's the early alpha.
I only lose at 10 of them, so you know.
Yeah. So what we want to do here is like, so I'm gonna do a quick recap of like what we're looking at, and then we'll get into where we can kind of like look at. So the first thing is, looking at your long positions. The basics is before you get into any long positions, just make sure you're trading with at least the 1 hour trend, right? Now, the best possible 1 hour longs is when you have a retest of a 2 hour RSI going all the way, down, going up and then going all the way down and then heading back up. That's a stronger area, letting you know that the volume has now doubled and it's starting to create momentum. Or what we call a moon reset, which is the 1 hour moon, 1 hour trend. The 1 hour moon goes red, then it becomes a green moon and it goes the other way. So if you guys notice, the short that we do is called the 1 hour pullback. That is actually shorting the very first 1 hour red moon. And now after that pullback, we can automatically go into the best 1 hour long moon, because that would be the moon reset, as long as we didn't catch a green trend. Okay. That's kind of like the ideal of, getting the best possible jumps. All right. So put in the notebook note side, best possible longs. I need at least a 1 hour trend to trade longs. Otherwise, I'm just shooting myself in the foot. If I want to trade the strongest longs, then I want the 2 hour RSI to do a reset, or I want a 1 hour moon retest, which is a reset. One means the 1 hour moon is green, the trend is green, the moon goes red, the trend stays green, the moon goes back to green, creating a very strong information that is a big push coming, and that move is to the upside. Or you let the 2 hour RSI go all the way up, come all the way back down, or at least below the 50 or 20 line, and then when it bounces and starts to head back up, take that as the move. So when the 2 hour RSI gets to the top, pulls back down, and it breaks below at least the 50 line and starts to head back up the other way, that is another sign of a very strong move to the upside. But no matter what, to start off, you must have a 1 hour green trend in order to do a long trade. Okay. Second thing is always anticipate two moves. The first move up, so whatever you're watching, whatever you're trading, the first move up, wait for the retest. The retest is where you want to be getting in. So always watch those double moves. So now,
yeah, I've started sometimes after I've done my few early entries and got them out my system, I've started just going for the retest. And obviously, you're not in any risk, as so much risk as wicks in the other direction or anything. It's a nice safer trade, and it's a bigger push than the first one.
Yes. So it's just getting the basics down, right? The indicators are guiding you, but emotions are where the first part of your battle is, to remove emotions, right? So that's kind of what we're covering now, is remove emotions from your decisions. And the only way to do that is to stop you from wanting to jump, get ahead, get in early, think that you figured out the glitch, right? That's what it's all about. You have to understand that they've created the glitch. They want you to think you understand, and then they punish you because you're not systematic, right? So now what we want to do is kind of get into the trades as we move forward, right? Which is where we were with the 15 minutes. Now here we have the basic entry where we have our green moon, green trend. We don't have positive volume in this area, but I'm going to show you that if we're trading properly, we're going to make money anyways. But once we get positive volume over here, plus a moon retest or a 2 hour RSI retest, we are making, it's the same trades here. The only difference is they go for a lot more, right? So this is where you can, when guys ask me, well, how much do I go for, right? And honestly, it's a hard answer to say, because in my brain, the only thing I understand is compounding, right? The only thing to me is this. If you say, yo, VC, I want to make 100 grand a year, then I say, well, then make 10 trades a week that make $200. It's the only thing I understand. So if we do it any differently, it's hard for me to be like, well, how far do we run? but I also understand position trading, long positions and stuff like that. So I want to kind of like, as you guys progress to the next levels of everything, then you will basically get to the point where you will understand bigger moves and where you can actually take advantage of a bigger move, right? And there'll be times as we go through. Those are boot camps that we cover. I'm doing this with a little boot camp information so that I can kind of like at least get them understanding enough information that they don't start to guess or push limits that we've already tested, right? You don't need to lose $100,000 to go, oh, well, that shit don't work, right? So this is what we're doing here. So boot camp wise, we're covering a little bit of boot camp action. So when you guys see me post a boot camp, you can take a different class we do. The boot camps are where we just teach deeper fundamentals that, you know, are nice to have, right? But the only way to get into boot camp is you have to at least pass the first intro course. Otherwise, the boot camp doesn't really, you know, it might click some things, but if you can't follow a simple, you know, indicator and, you know, simple steps, then it's not, you know, you don't need more tips. You need to be more disciplined, right? So here we go on the basics. So let's start off with our basics here. We start off with a green trend, right? That's the first indication of a moon, a position, and a trade. So when we go back to our 1 hour, we get our 1 hour trend. Now we say, okay, we got a 1 hour trend on Magic. Now we can make some trades, right? So we go in here, same scenarios, right? What you need to make these trades are going to be your 15-minute moons, positive volume, just like the 1 hour. It's just on a lower thing, right? So we just went through this trade where we got our moon, we got our volume, we wait for the pullback. The first move is to let the RSI go to the bottom because remember, when the trend first happens, there has to be a pullback. So you're actually, by waiting for the first RSI to pull back, is because you're playing along with the very first pullback that's going to happen on the 1 hour. Now, once that happens and you start moving to the upside, this is where you get your 15-minute green moon that you want to trade. Now you get a pump on the moon, you get a retest of the 0 line, a retest of the RSI. You don't need this one to go all the way down because it's your first one. So you're able to take your entry here, and this is where we're able to get that first move. Now, this first move, actually, as a newbie, you would hit your 50% profits, and then you would be moving on to your next move or your next trade. Now, if you have it set at 100% and you're kind of a little more advanced, then you would actually get to the point where you get a second entry here, where you would move your take profits down to 50% and you would hit your target. Now, moving on from there, this is where when guys say, okay, there's a push, right? And the very first push that we look for, and every single push is the same, right? It's a 15-minute pullback, right? Now, 15-minute pullbacks are where there's a push that comes up on a move, and then you get a 15-minute red moon, right? So how we trade any, you know, reverse or any short is a 15-minute red moon with a 15-minute RSI crossing down towards the bottom. And as long as the 30 is with you in that favor, then we would be looking to take advantage of that short, right? That's kind of like that first move. Now, for me, I always like to take advantage of the second 15-minute red moon, which is basically this one wins here, but most of the time it's a kind of like an in-between battle. But if you're only taking 50%, the reason why, guys, we're set at 50% profits is because you can hit 50% profits with the 50x leverage 90% of the time. If you're terrible at entries, 70% of the time. So if you thought about it and you said, okay, or if I entered, you know, let's say 50-50, let's say that you entered and you didn't hit 50% of the time and it went backwards, if you're moving your stop loss properly, right, then you should only get knocked out of your stop loss 3 out of 5 times at 0. 2 times, maybe 15% losses. So you end up losing 30%. But let's say worst case scenario, you stop loss at 0 twice, and 3 times you lost 50%. So you lose 150%, right? On the other 5 times of the trade, it hits for 50%, so you make 250. So you have doubled your money, and you're the worst pullback trader that we could possibly think of. Okay, that's kind of why the system is set up. It's designed to take the worst guy and make him profitable. He only made 100% on 10 trades, where we average about 700 to 800%. But at the end of the day, he made 100%. You see what I'm saying? So he doubled his bag. And if he can do that once a month, right? If he can do that once a month, he is 5 times better trader than any other trader he knows. It's kind of funny, but that's the truth. So when you look at these moves, I'm a guy I'm always confirmation, right? So for me, I think of the first 5-minute pullback, right, which would be this 15-minute moon. I think of it as the first target. Then I wait for the bounce, right? This is the one that I would enter, right? So I'm always looking at the double move, you know what I'm saying? Like I always know that there's a move, then there's a profit moment, and then there's the push, and then there's the real move. So to me, I want to always be in the possible best scenario to make money. So I want to trade with momentum. The first move is always considered the shock to the system. The second move is momentum, because now it has more, people are aware that's going to happen, and now they're more willing to go with that move. So to me, this first 15-minute pullback is a winner, right? And the reason why we used to call a 15-minute pullback, we used to trade these every time. We used to just use higher leverage to take advantage of this move, because it put us at less risk and more reward. And we would always hit, when you do 100x leverage, you only need a 0.5% move to hit your point. So they're very easy to make money. But the first pullback for the guys who are doing the first intro to the course, you guys need to start learning how to take advantage of the second move. So this first 15-minute move here is more of a setup for an entry into your next long position, which happens here. Now, once you're in that position and you get to the second 15-minute red moon, this is where a new guy would be saying to themselves, this is a stronger possibility of a pullback, and there's better odds for me to actually get into a trade. So when we catch that 15-minute moon here, we get an alert saying that there's a possible pullback. You can see we have our RSI coming down. So a 15-minute RSI starts to come down, you catch a 15-minute moon. This is where you would be considering looking at a trade here, right? You have your RSI crossing, 15-minute moon. Here's a trade position, right? And the second part of this trade, right? So let's move these over. So 15-minute moon alert comes over here. You have your RSI breaking down. So here's your alert. This would be an area that you take your first short one, right? So there's your short entry there. Now, we are set up to where on this particular move here, you would be looking for some type of bounce, right, to get your second entry. Now, this move comes in, it comes down, and you actually catch it, the RSI hit the bottom, and it bounces on you, right? Bounces up, gets to here, triggers a second entry, which would be somewhere in here. This would be your 2S, right? And then you end up catching the short that happens right here. So now at this point, easy 50% move right there. You end up catching it, you end up winning. Now what we're doing is confirmation of trades, right? So 15-minute RSI comes, starts to come down, you get a moon, okay? You're waiting for the 15-minute trend to confirm. Now this is what we call an ALF trade right here, right? So ALF will come in, catch the RSI cracking down, catch the 15-minute moon. ALF will take an entry here because ALF's been around a while, and we know that we can cost average buy into this. It's a different style of trading, but what happens is guys who can't do a lot of different moves, it kind of throws you off. So the easiest way to do this is the systematic trade, right? So what we would do here is we would wait for a 15-minute red moon. We would let the RSI come down and bounce up. Now, as it bounces up here, we would be waiting for confirmation of like a 15-minute trend. So when that alert comes on the trend, right, that would put us into an entry point somewhere down here in this candle here in this region for an entry point somewhere in here, right? So it'd be a middle piece here. Now you have a 15-minute trend alert. You're getting alerts probably 4 or 5 times in here. The RSI is pushing up when the alert's coming, and then the RSI starts to bend down. So you would take your first entry here, and that would put you into this trade here. Now what would happen here is this trade would actually go for 50%, not hit 100 here, but yeah, it actually hits 100. So this trade would actually hit 100% with your 40% entry. So you'd be out of that trade the very first trade it happens. So that's where that big dump comes. And we're doing a 50x leverage. So if we got in this trade, worst case scenario, yeah, it'd be the lowest part here. You're about 2%. So more than likely, you're probably going to hit your 2% here on this trade, which would be a 50x leverage times 2% would be 100. So you're probably going to get knocked out of this trade with a win, but you're only winning 100 of your 40% bag, right? So that particular trade, you would get your first trade in, you'd be out, and you'd move over. But that's the systematic side of it. Red moon comes in, right? RSI is coming down, right? Systematic is to wait for your trend. Alert happens here, 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 or here, wherever you got in. Then it goes for its move there, right? So for us, when we look at this particular pullback, our thing is to determine the safest pullbacks that we have in that scenario, right? Is to kind of like figure out, okay, where's our safest move? The safest move is the moon and the trend, and then take advantage of that pullback right there. Now, the reason why we don't have to have the 15-minute RSI go all the way back to the top like we do for a long and then come back down is because shorts are twice as strong as longs, which means if they bounce up at any point, at least to the 20 line here, anything above here, when it goes back down, that's going to be the move, right? Because it's a waterfall effect, right? It happens very quickly. So you don't need the 15-minute to do a full reset here. Once we have a moon, we have an RSI cross, right? In reality, when we have the RSI cross and the 15-minute moon, that would trigger a point where you can look for a short position here, and then you would use your second entry to protect your short entry, which is where the 15-minute RSI bounces. It would be where you would be getting your second entry in here, and then you would take advantage of this move here. So what we're doing now is when we review the trades, right, like we're doing now, is we have to look at how many times which one wins better, right? If you get a 15-minute RSI crossing and the moon hits and you take your first entry position, and then the RSI hits the bottom and it bounces, and then from there, because what you're doing is you're waiting for a 15-minute moon trend to come in. When that trend comes in, that gives you your RSI bounce here. That gives you your second entry, and then you have a continuation there. Now, if this trend doesn't come in, you could have a point where this bounces up one more time, and that would basically create a third entry as long as it goes above your second entry, and that would be your third entry to your short there. So that's why we have that set up there. So this scenario, no matter how you trade it out, still puts you in a position where you're winning, right? Now, the point that I want you guys to see here is that when we get this first red moon, right, and we get this pullback, the first red moon is probably not going to catch a red trend because we're in the beginning of a strong long, because we waited for the 1 hour trend. We waited for that to happen. So more than likely, the very first red moon isn't going to catch a red trend. Now, my second red moon has a better opportunity to catch a trend, creating a bigger pullback in that scenario. That's why we wait for that second red moon, because I know that if I'm watching a long, it's probably in a stronger position. So I need to give it the chance to build momentum. So the second moon is the momentum, right? So when we trade here, we're looking at two ways to look at this, right? 15-minute RSI breaking down, 15-minute red moon, creating the first entry, RSI bounces, creating the second entry, then we take advantage of that, we win. The other way, 15-minute moon comes in, you wait for the 15-minute trend to enter, you enter your first entry here instead of there, you end up catching 100% gains. Either way, you end up taking the percent that you want, and both ways end up winning, okay? Now, let's move on to the next move here, and we're going to reevaluate and go through all that again. What's this? Okay. So now you have a move here where 15-minute moons comes back in, right? 15-minute moon, RSI is at the bottom. Normally that will say that you want to see a trade. What we need to see here is the volume retest. This isn't really a lot of positive volume. The 15-minute comes back down, then it pushes up, then it retests the zero line, which would create the area where you would actually enter your long position here, okay? Now, the reason why, once again, because we're in the position of we're already inside the 1 hour momentum, right? The first trades here are building momentum, meaning that as we move forward, these trades are going to get, a little more, we have more push to them, right? So pullback happens, 1 hour moon, it doesn't really break positive volume, it comes down. Can you take that entry there? Yeah, as I say, a guy takes that early entry. This is why we're designed the way we are. 15-minute RSI is at the bottom. 15-minute pushes up, does here, does a retest, starts to move up. He takes his first entry there. So instead of waiting for the volume to get higher and re-break, he takes the early entry, right, which is okay. He's got his push down, his RSI is coming off the bottom. The volume breaks positive, breaks down, goes right there. Then he gets his first entry here, and he's moving on, right? Second entry would be where that breaks up, then it comes down again, right? And now at this point, he would see another volume retest here, which will allow him to get into a second trade here, and then he has his push up. Now the third entry, if he needs to get in the third entry, would be the RSI comes all the way down, etc. Right? But you can see here, gets into his entry here, volume touch, retest, entry, pushes up, second entry. Now whether this is his first entry, or if he gets in here with the second, or if this becomes his first and last, because this trade here probably went for 2%. Yeah, so this trade here would have spiked for 2%. So either way, we are winning here. So if he only got his first entry here, and his percents are set up correctly with a 50% stop loss, a 100% take on the first entry, he ends up hitting his target. If he's in there with a 50-50-50, he still did okay because he made 50% on his 40%. Either way, that's 20% profits, and that's where we want to, that's the minimum that we want to make. Now, if he made that early entry, took a second entry, and then moved his profits from 100% down to 50, he ends up hitting that anyways. So both those trades end up winning, right? So when you guys are making these trades, and the whole point of showing you guys how these trades play out, even if you make a mistake, is to show you that they're already designed for your mistake. The trades that you're doing are designed for your mistakes. That's why they're implemented, right? Does that make sense to you guys? So how many guys, like when you go in to make trades, it kind of you don't have the confidence right now that you're kind of holding back here and there? Is that a lot of you guys, or what is that? M Pro, what up, baby? CNA. What up, bro?
Yeah, I'm a mix between jumping in early and holding out.
Yeah.
Caught in that middle ground, watching a good move. I'm like, I'll make the jump in, and then
just slow down a little.
Some
right?
of them are panning out, and then some of them are hitting the loss because I'm doing a little bit higher leverage. So dialing that back now and back to the basics, like I talked about before.
Yeah, and the basics are once we can. The basics are just designed to give us a frame, right? Once we have data, we can make some changes, right? But if you're all over the place, I never know what to do to help you, right? So if you just give me basics, and then we can build from there. And what I want to show you guys is the reason why we have the basics with the 50% leverage, 50% stop loss, is because it allows, the system is designed for your mistakes. So you can basically survive what's happening, even if you're jumping a little bit early, or which entry you're taking, or if you're systematic and you're the guy that's like, all right, I need I need a little more confirmation, right? So the guy that's a little more nervous gets the next entry and he still gets in, right? He still wins. So it's to take care of the guys who want to jump early and to take care of the guys who want to, you know, a little more anxiety. You know what I mean? So that's why it's designed that way, to basically have both scenarios play out and both scenarios win, right? Because at the end of the day, if you can knock out 20% on your trades, you're still making money, right? It's all about profits, right? That's what it's really all about. So that's kind of where those two different trades, they all pan out, okay? So now when we move to the next thing, notice how we're getting into the third red moon, right? So now here goes our third 15-minute red trend. And we go back to the same thing, the scenario that we kind of just went over again, where here's your 15-minute RSI crossing, right? To me, that's a signal to a short. 15-minute trend alert comes in, I'm already thinking about the move right there. So normally, you know, more advanced traders, that 15-minute moon hits, this is where we're getting a first entry here, right? Now, systematically, the guys who are waiting for the, you know, the trends and everything, this is where I would be taking my second short, because as we're pulling back, we're getting a little more aggressive, and I can notice that I'm getting where the volume is you know, breaking down, but it's kind of like, you know, it's not really getting ahead of itself here, right? So this would be our second pullback. What's our second pullback? The RSI crosses 15-minute red moon. You take an entry here. Here's your 15-minute moon alert. You take your entry, and now you're in the position of the pullback trade. And your entry, your second entry, would be when the RSI comes down, bounces, which happens here, and then you would take your second entry on that 15-minute bounce right there, right? So that's kind of how that would play out. So you'd have this push here, the 15-minute RSI bounces and then starts to come down. That creates a second entry in here, and then basically there you go. So that trade right there, let's see if that first one would have clicked out on you. So you'd have survived that first one, and then your second trade would have came in, and then that's where you would have cleared your easy 50% on that. So this trade here, you know, once again, same scenario. You catch the 15-minute RSI crossing, 15-minute red moon entry, you tag it, then all of a sudden it pushes down, doesn't give you your percentage, so you're still hanging out. The volume pushes up, rejects, starts to head down. Now, a lot of guys, if you're getting kind of looking at rejections, you can see here, when that 15-minute volume pushes up here and starts to reject again, that could actually be a moment that you say, oh, you know what, I'm going to take my second trade there, right? That's a little bit early. I like for it to, you know, kind of like push, and that would be when this volume bounces, comes up. Then that is where I would take my second trade. And that also coexists with this bounce here. You can see here that the RSI isn't bouncing with that. See the difference? With this bounce here, the RSI isn't bouncing with it, so I wouldn't take that as a bounce. Then when the RSI hits the bottom and crosses, I would take this as my bounce, and then that would be the time that I would implement my second entry point off of here somewhere. Does that make sense? That makes sense to you guys? Pretty decent, right?
I'm listening, but I can't see your stream right now. I don't know if it's just me.
Mine's trying to load.
Is it going in?
We're all just listening to him. I was gonna say it, but I didn't. I thought it was just.
Hold on. Let me see. Let me give her that. Hop in. All right, I'm back.
I think what happened was it dropped you out earlier, like briefly or something. Whenever it seemed to do that, it's back now. There. Yeah, like after it seemed like you dropped out and then came back, and then the stream was just stuck.
All right, so this would be. Can you guys see my screen now?
Yeah. So today was the first day I've like been in the daytime, being in the live trade with the guys, and it was good. I bunked off work this afternoon because I've got a situation at work, and I might tell them to shove up the ass tomorrow, and I might get. But anyway, other than that,
That just means your bot's doing too well. He's gonna quit work.
I jumped in. I took my usual early trade, which went well. I took 2 more early trades, which both didn't go well. But what happens with me is if I don't trade, I don't have chance. I don't, because I work full time. I've got a life and blah blah. I'll probably say this about a million times. When I get a chance to trade, I'm very eager. So I literally had to get a couple of trades just out my system and just do them. But there were a couple of times today when we was on with Horse, when things were just lined up perfectly, and I think I was probably one of the only person that took the trade. Even though it went against, it was all lined up. And what happens is everything can be all lined up and it still go wrong, but 9 times out of 10, it will go well. Today, eliminating the early trades that went well, because they still came out on top because the early trade went well. But other than that, I'm still up. I'm still up because I'm taking the trades when all of the conditions are there. And I think, like what Vici's saying, the newer guys, when all of the conditions are lined up, you have to take a trade, otherwise you'll never take a trade. Get the data, get the feedback, and get to improve your trades.
Yeah. And this is why, like, this video will be on there. We'll post this video and you go watch it. It'll be a little bit longer because we're covering everything. But systematically, when you start to see the different ways that these trades happen, and you could miss the first trade, but then you just wait for it to reset, right? So for like this trade here, we have our 15-minute moon and RSI crossing, right? You take an early trade, it bounces, your second trade comes in when that second RSI bounces, and then boom, you make your percent. Now, even if you were systematic and you say, you know what, I'm going to wait for the 15-minute moon and trend. The RSI goes all the way down, it bounces, you get a trend. That would be on this enter here. Now that trade ends up coming down, and you can see here you end up getting about pretty close to your 2%. You might have hit it based on how it spikes, but that would have pulled down on you right there, and you would have been in a situation where hopefully you're moving your stop losses at that point. But a lot of times in that point there, when you catch that second move down, it's it's learning to adjust to what you're seeing. Right, so you see the RSI push up once, come down, and now you're up against it on the 15-minute RSI because now it has to push up. And that's where you see this trade go against you. So this is a type of trade that can be very close to winning, right? It wins on the jump trade, but it breaks even on the second trade because it didn't have enough momentum because the RSI was only at the 20 line, right? That's kind of what we talk about. Like, you always want the 15-minute RSI to be up above in the halves if it's going to be your first entry, right? That's kind of where that goes. So for me, if I was waiting for the 15-minute moon, then I needed the 15-minute trend, and that RSI was already down there, I would have to let the 15-minute RSI come to the top, which would then create the next scenario, which is the green moon scenario and green trend, which is a completely different trade for us, right? So in this particular moment here, you have 3 things that could happen. You can do the trade with the 15-minute RSI crossing, 15-minute red moon, enter, 15-minute RSI bounces out the floor, bounces the volume. You have your second entry, you end up winning 50%. If you get your first trade in and you don't get your second, you end up winning your 100% on your 40% trade on your first bag, or 50% of the 2-bag entry. But if you wait for the 15-minute moon and the trend to come in, you get in here, it's going to be really close to the 50% gains, but you might be able to move your stop loss here and get it to 20% profits, or at least move it to the entry, which would have gave you where you lost nothing on the bounce, and you would have been out of that, and you'd have been like, oh, okay, well, at least I had that trade. So there are those trades that exist in there that are really close from being part of your profit bag, but also could be one of the 3 out of 10 losses you take, but you were just on the cusp of that. You will eventually fix that problem as you move forward, and this will become a win more often. But currently, the way if you're systematically moon and trend, this will be those type of trades that are part of your 3 losses out of your 10, right? Now, scenario moves down, you move to the next trade, which would be your 15-minute green moon, but your RSI is at the top. So you'd actually have to wait that out, let that play out. And as it moves down, we end up catching a red moon. We end up catching a red trend, and the RSI is at the bottom. So now we're letting that play out again. It moves up, right? And a guy could see that move up. It touches the 50 line, right? Which could create a scenario where a guy says, well, if my 15 RSI gets to there and I see the retest, I'm going to start my entry here because I have a moon, I have a trend, and more importantly, like always, we have a double move. So just like here, if you have a moon and a trend, here's a move. The guy takes the second move, and then he ends up not quite hitting his percent here. But over here, he has his moon, he has his move down, his second move pushes up. This creates his very first entry. It comes down. Now what happens here is that he bounces, comes across, catches a moon here, right? But he's still in a trend. Remember, we're not closing this. And that's where you guys make the mistake. You guys close your trades because you get emotionally. You say, oh, well, shit, VC, there was a 15-minute green moon. Once you're in, you're in. It either hits the stop loss or it hits the profit. You do not change the data. Okay? 15-minute moon comes in.
Let it lose. It probably won't. It will get. It will come all the. It's. I mean, before I was in the academy, I used to draw trend lines. But I probably still should because it does an extra confirmation as well. But it's so for the newer guys. It's so amazing to see how close it will get to hitting either if it's a trend line or where your stop loss is supposed to be. If you see it go 5% down and you get out, that's not making any sense because it can. If your stop loss is supposed to be 50%, let it go to 49 because you'll get to 49.9999999, and you might still win that trade.
Mm-hmm.
But when you quit out, you lose.
Yeah, you lose. Well, then the problem is you quit. The problem is you get out and then it goes down a little more and you feel good and then it rips the other way and you're like, I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
And then you're not doing yourself any favors because you're becoming emotional.
Let it win or lose, yeah. Following the system, let it win or lose because you'll win more than you lose. That's all it is. Just don't even care. Don't even obviously trade with the amount of money you can trade with. Like the couple I lost today, I had a 25% of my bag in it, and it didn't bother me because the ones that I won more, and I added more into it, and blah blah blah, and I'll come out on top. But at the end of the day, if you're following the system, you are going to win more than you lose. So if you lose a couple, let them lose, but don't cut out early. If you cut out at 5% or 10% or 20 or 30%, then, well, depending on where your stop loss is, probably 5% is way too early because it will, no matter how close it gets to, and you think, oh, it's going the wrong way, leave it because it will go and go into the right direction eventually. More times than not.
Yeah, the whole bottom line is when you're following a system, you follow the system, right? So if you're working out and it says eat 2 chicken breasts with this, and this, you don't eat 1 chicken breast for a week and go, well, this isn't working. I'm not buffing up. You know what I mean? Like don't cheat the system, right? Because then I don't know how. Like when I'm telling you something, I don't know how to help you because
you eat 2 chicken breasts, you eat your 2 chicken breasts.
Yeah, right. Do the follow the recipe, right? Because if I go back and I look at your trade and I'm like, how the hell did you lose this? And I don't understand, then I'm just confused, right? So if you take your first entry here, right, and you're in because you have a 15-minute moon and a trend, and you let the bounce happen, and you let the RSI bounce up to the 50 line at least. Then you take your first entry and you're like, okay, boom, I'm in. It comes back down. It doesn't give you what you want. And now it goes on its move to the top. Catches a green moon, right? Pushes up, comes across, and then the 15-minute RSI starts to head back down again, right? So where's your next entry? It's when the net 15-minute RSI starts to head back down. There's our second entry, right? Now in this scenario, we'll map out this little section here. It goes back 0.45, which if you're doing a 50x leverage is 25%. Okay, so you're safe. You get your second entry here, and now you're basically 70% in your bag, and then it goes back in your favor, and guess what? You end up winning your trade. So it'd be about this middle ground, you do 2.8, right? But if you don't follow the system, then I can't help you because the system is designed off of bad traders, right? That's what it's designed for. It's designed to take terrible traders and make you winners, right? That's what we do.
I've been a terrible trader, yes.
Right. So that's why you have to kind of the only way to get out of that trade is if it loses, right? So there we go. That's how we make our trade. That's what we do. And now we have that push. But if you're following the system, you're in the right spots. Now let's say that you don't catch this first trade, and then you come along and you're watching and you're like, oh, I didn't get that trade. And then you notice here that it's moving up. It has a 15-minute moon, pushes up. RSI starts to cross down right there. You catch the red moon here, which would be somewhere here, but you have a green trend. So you would stay out of that. Then it bounces up. Moon comes back. Then the moon and trend hit right here, right? So here's another trade. 15-minute moon right here, right? 15-minute RSI crossing down. Now, what I want you guys to start understanding is that volume dictates the ability to understand how much you can cheat the system, right? You can cheat the system here because if you looked at your volume, you see how the volume went negative here. Then it bounced up and it really didn't do too much. And then it went down here, right? And then over here, it's trying to fight these positions. So if you're looking at this trade as it's developing here, you can see here that it went to the 0 line, fought up, couldn't do much, broke down, bounced up, right? How do we trade, right? This is why you have to get to the point where you understand like what are the lessons that you're taking, right? And this is where boot camps come in because you guys should always understand if I'm looking at this trade and I'm like, okay, 15-minute green moon, I'm going to take a short. Oh, it turned green. I got to wait. Okay, red moon, I'm waiting. Okay, boom, green moon. Okay, there's a push. I'm waiting. Now, the reason why very important, the reason why this isn't a long trade is why? There's no positive volume here, right? So if I was looking for a positive like moon, right? So I get a green trend, a green moon. If I'm looking to get into a long, I need the volume to break above, retest, and then push up, right? Notice here that it breaks above and it fails the retest. You see that? See how it fails the 15-minute retest? Now, to me, if I'm looking at my RSI and I see the fail of a retest, and then I notice the RSI is failing and I get a red moon, this becomes my entry. Does that make sense? So now here, if I see this test, right, what do I have? I have a 15-minute volume, negative volume hit, the retest to the top to the 0 line, right? Let me change these to yellow. You guys hear me?
Sure.
So here, I'm gonna turn these white here. Okay, so make them a little bit thicker. So once again, if I'm paying attention to what my patterns are, which are I just need retest, right? So if I'm sitting here watching and I realize that this is starting to, head towards the negative section, and I see the 15-minute volume go negative, I'm like, oh, okay, that would have been interesting short. then I would be in my mind, once I see this volume go negative, I'm in my mind, just like here. See how the volume went negative? As soon as it goes negative and pushes up, if it fails to retest, I start looking for this second move. I start looking for this move here, right? If I'm in a short look position, right? That's kind of how I would look at that. So as I move around, positive volume, and I kind of come across, and here I see it lose a battle. When it pushes up right here, this is where I would be thinking to myself, man, if this doesn't break up, then I'm in a short position here. So right when that fails that hold and it starts to break down, now I have a 15-minute red moon and a 15-minute RSI crossing. This is a position that I would take in right here into a short, because that has no volume support, breaking down, RSI crossing with a red moon. So there's my first entry. Now the next time I enter this trade would be this. I would let the 15-minute RSI bounce, start to move its way up, and I would look for the entry off of that next push. Now I'm in this move here. Its move comes down, pushes up. I get a green moon. It does its big push. The RSI gets weak. Here's my second entry. Now I go for that next move down, and that's the execution, right? Now, if we look at these trades, if I take that first entry, a 2% move makes me 100% on my 40X. See, I already hit it. Now, if I'm following the system, I know that when the bounce comes, since I'm already negative volume, I know that when the bounce comes on this RSI and it gets weak again, then I would take another entry at this bad boy right here and take advantage of the next move down, which ends up netting me again another 2% move there. See? But that's the best part. Now, this second trade here would be a guy who is a little more advanced because he knows he's got a green moon and he's like, I'm going to take that extra piece of the pie. Now, if you're trading systematic, you don't take the second trade. You don't worry about it. You make your first trade. It hits 2%. You're in the money. And you get a green moon. You wait. Then you get a 15-minute red moon comes in. What do you need? The RSI to reset. And what happens here is you realize that the volume is really low. 15 minutes starts to move up. You get a green moon, and then what happens here is you start to see the change of direction of the volume, and now you're just moving into what happens here? The volume breaks up. Then what happens? It pulls back down. What happens there, right? Now we have the RSI starts to move up. This is where we start looking for the positions in like long positions, right? So 15-minute moon pushes up, comes back down, hits. Where would that be? That would be the part where we would decide if we're doing a long. We would take our first entry here off this bounce, right? We let this RSI reset and then start to move up. So even if you jump early, you'd be in this position here. Now the RSI starts to play out, comes all the way down, hits this level here, finally resets. You have a red moon here, gives you a reset, right? Reset comes into here. This becomes your second entry here, right? Now you're bouncing up, you're crossing over, second entry here. And now at the end of the day, you're in this long position up here. You've entered this position at the worst time. Right here was the first pullback. You got your entry, push up. Let's see, you probably made 50% on that anyways. That's the sad part. All right, so you get your entry there, 2%. Okay, 2%'s up here. So you don't get your 2%. You enter here. The pullback comes, right? Because here's your volume, right? Here's your volume. 15-minute moon, 15-minute volume. You buy the retest. You get into this position. It pushes up. The RSI, you didn't let the RSI reset. Now, a better trader would see the moon, catch the volume, wait for the 15-minute RSI to reset, and that changes your whole trajectory to this entry. You see? That's where that would come. Now, at that point, you end up with a red moon, so you'd wait until you get a green moon, which is there, which would put your entry here, and now you're in the best possible entry, and obviously that does well. But even if you make the mistake, and it's not really a mistake, it's just a lower percent possible trade, right? But based on the system, it's still designed to win. That's the messed up part, right? So you get the volume to the push tide. It pulls back. we take the entry on the pullback, right? Normal thing. First is the push up. It bounces back. It shows support. You jump in on the entry. Here's your first entry. Boom. Good job. RSI has to bend up, right? Here it goes bending up on the 15-minute. You take that entry. So you're somewhere over here on the entry because you'd wait your RSI to turn up right about there. So we'll put you here in this spot here. Now at that point, it pushes up. You wait things play out. RSI comes down, starts to bend up again. That would put your second entry here. Right? Still in plenty of room. You don't get stop lossed out. You need a 1% move to get stop lossed out, which would be this big. So from your entry point down to your next level, you were safe all the way down to here. So your early entry, which is not a bad entry. That's what I'm saying. Like the whole thing here is that you start to improve, but the system is designed to win every time if you're putting in the right information, right? 50% take profit on this or that. So here's your green moon, positive volume. It retests. You come in with your entry. Boom, you're in on your entry. Stop loss is 50%, which is way down here. All right, we need a 1% move. Yep, 50% would be there. So there's your stop loss. You're all set. Second move is volume comes back, goes along. The RSI resets, touches, red moon, comes up, starts to move up. Green moon, put your second entry here. Bada boom, bada bing. Now you're in on that second move. And now all you need from there is 50% profits, which is literally the 1% move. And there you go. So either way, if you play the 15-minute, right, the most important thing is the reason why we have the volumes in place is because once they're in place, they up your chance of winning by 70%. And as it builds momentum, it gets stronger. So keep in mind, this is the first time the 15-minute broke up. This is the first 15-minute retest. This is the first push. This is the first testing. This is the second move, which is worth more, right? So I want you guys to start thinking in your mind that, man, every time there's a move and then a retest of a move, the second move is stronger, right? This is where when you go for those extra percentages here, you know, you could say to yourself, okay, you know what? I got my second bag in, but this is actually the look at the volume retest, and this is another retest. This is a moon reset, right? 15-minute moon, 15-minute trend, red 15-minute moon, green 15-minute trend. The moon goes back to green with a green trend. This is the only time that you can move your profits from a 50% profit area to think about going to a higher percent, right? Which would be asking for the whole 100%, right? These are the areas that you would think about, you know, moving your take profit maybe from 50 to 75%, right? Now, the whole thing about this is once you start moving your stop loss, you know, you'll have those bigger pullbacks. The reason why, as we move forward and start to get in those positions, we don't actually start teaching this lesson here is because then you start trying to get that 2% every time, and then you're blowing the 50% profits, which are guaranteed, right? It's easier, right? So this is when I explain this, you'll understand why I'm saying this. It's easier to just take the 50% profits like you're supposed to, and then let it play out where you're already made your profits. Here comes the red moon. It comes down, and guess what? What happens? The 15-minute green moon comes back, right? Here you go again. And it's the same damn thing. Here's another entry right here. Green moon, the same entry you just did here. Now it reset again. What do we have? 15-minute moon, 15-minute trend, 15-minute red moon, 15-minute green moon again. What is that? A moon reset, right? What did you have? The volume pushed up. The volume came down. You got your moon. You entered here on your moon entry, your very first entry. The volume retested, right? The volume pushed up, retested. You enter a second entry here. And then what happens? You go on this big ass run. Now, since this is the third time the 15-minute has created a trade for you to win, now on the third time, you can ask for that 2%. Now you can ask, when you make your second entry, you can move your 50% profits to 100, okay? On the third time. Because now you have momentum. You can even look to run this entire trade, right? Meaning that if you get in that trade and you're running really good, maybe you say to yourself, on the third 15-minute trade, I look to close out when the 1 hour trend comes in, which would be about here. So this is something that, we're going to add down the road to you, for you guys, where you can take advantage and try to score this huge ass runner here, right? Which would basically be, let's say you're doing a 50x leverage like you're supposed to. This would end up running out for about 250% here, right? Nah, what would we be doing in there? Yeah, 250. So this is a 250% trade, and you're closing out on your 15-minute red trend, which would be here. But that third one is where we're going to see more longer trades. So I just wanted to kind of put that for you, so that way you stop trying to extend rallies on the early positions and realize if you just take the trades the way they're supposed to be, you make money. Because once again, if you're running this trade, let's go over like how you would do it. So now you had a 50% trade, 50% trade. Now you get in again here. Here's another 50% trade. What happens? The moon goes red, then it goes green again, right? Then you get your RSI, your 15-minute RSI is on the bottom. Here you go again. If that happens again to you, 15-minute comes down, green moon comes, you re-enter, right? Let me show you. Now, let's say you get in the trade again. Simplicity. 15-minute moon RSI comes down, starts to head up. You catch a 15-minute green moon alert. You enter again on your 15-minute green moon alert, right? You grab this over here. That would be basically, here's your trade, you win. The pullback, 15-minute green moon comes in, there's an alert. You enter here, you're on your first trade, right? Now this move here doesn't quite break 2%, but it's pretty close. But let's say it doesn't get it, and you have to come with a second entry, right? Which means that you would catch this pullback on the RSI, right? You see here, 15-minute RSI pushes up, doesn't hit your take profit, starts to pull back. You're in the trade and you're seeing this big pullback, and you go all the way back from 35, or well, you're only in you're a 50x at that point. So you see a 35, 40% entry. You don't quite hit your mark in there, and it pulls back. And now you pull back and your RSI comes all the way down. Volume bounces, starts to head back up, right? You can pick your spots in there, but this is the difference here. I want you guys to pay attention to this. This is probably a key point. The volume is going down. The RSI bounces right here, right? Bounces up once, starts to come down, right? Now, a lot of times guys will take the second entry when right here they enter. RSI is pushing, you get a green moon alert, you take your entry, right? A lot of times what we're always saying is let your 15-minute RSI reset, right? So you get your 15-minute moon alert, the RSI is close to the 80. Systematically, you would let this RSI play out, go all the way to the bottom. You would catch a red moon, not be in that trade, wait, comes across, starts to move up, and your entry, your first entry systematically would be here. If you're following the system, you'd be coming into the trade about here for your first trade, right? Because now you've let the RSI hit the bottom, it's pushing up, then the moon hits in here, the RSI on the 15 is below the 80, you take your entry point there, now you're in a one entry right there, it's a different trade, ends up winning the 2% move, so you get 100% on your first entry, right? That trade plays out. Now back to this scenario, you enter and you realize that you didn't look at your, you get your moon alert and you're still below the 80, so you take your entry, which is still a good entry. Doesn't break the 2%, starts to pull back. The RSI goes all the way to the bottom, right? Now you see right here, the money line starts to bend up right there. That would create a second entry because the RSI on the 15-minute and the 1 money line bends. So the second entry would come off of the money line and the RSI, and you would enter here with your second trade, right? Now, it fakes out. People panic because that's a push. They think the dump's coming, and they dump on you again. This is why we have the third entry in here. The third long is here to protect you from when people do dumbass shit. So here you go. Now it pulls back on you, and now you have another RSI pull down to the bottom. The money line hits off the 0, starts to head up again. So your first entry is here. Now you guys see that? Volume comes down, bounces, starts to head up with the RSI. You take your second entry. You guys see how that worked? You guys take your second entry. Now, the RSI pushes down even further. The RSI bends back down, touches again, starts to head back up again. This is your third entry, right? Now, remember, when your first entry is up here, your third entry needs to be below that. So here's your third entry here. That would be your third entry there. So this particular trade, you actually needed your third entry here, or didn't need it, but it actually gave it to you because it goes back to your first entry. So now you're fully in, you got 100% bag. You are set up at this point to move up, and all you need is your 50% profits, which is basically a 1% move, which is really, really easy. But once again, since this is at the point of this trade being third and fourth generation of the 15-minute trades inside of this 1 hour, you can now say to yourself, I'm going to run this up until the 15-minute red moon comes back in. And you could actually take this trade all the way up to here and catch something in this zone here, right? And that would be where you would say, okay, instead of the 50%, I'm going to ask for 100%, which would simply be a 2% move right here, right? So same scenario. And the reason why you can get it at this point is because this is a third or fourth 15-minute move. Does that make sense? And your volume is showing, it's a lot of volume here. Does that make sense, guys?
Yeah.
Now, the beautiful thing is, you know, you don't even have to put this in your mind in the beginning, because if you're just knocking out your 50% gains and you're trading the system the way you're supposed to, you would have made 50% anyways. That extra 50% right there doesn't really matter. It's just one particular trade that you can get an extra 50 on your whole bag. It's not even that big of a deal. But this will allow you to kind of understand that while we're making our trades, there are scenarios where there are areas that you can push for more, right? And sometimes they go for even more than that, but you don't want to push your trades, because if you're just following the system, you're going to be knocking out 50% trade, 50% trade, right? You're going to catch it anyways. You got your first 50% trade, your second 50% trade, your third 50% trade. Then you get the red moon. What does it do? It goes down, and what happens here? Ah, voila. Now we have another 15-minute moon, right? And then we get a 15-minute trend. And what does that mean? Now we got another trade. And what does that do? Right? Here we go again. Same damn thing. That over and over, these trades hit. 15-minute moon, 15-minute trend. 15-minute volume goes up. You see the little bend there. You wait for the 15-minute RSI, right? Here's your first push. RSI is at the top. So what do? You wait for the RSI to come down. So nice of you. There you go. And then boom, you're in the trade right here. Now you're in this trade, and voila, here we go again. There's the pullback. 15-minute RSI is at the bottom. 15-minute moon, 15-minute trend. You catch a 15-minute red moon. There's the pullback. You're waiting. RSI hits the bottom. 15-minute green moon alert comes. Here you go. You take that entry just like that. 15-minute RSI is up below the 80 line. Here's your first entry. Bada boom, bada bing. And if you're systematically trading this and you're taking your time and you're trading and you're not worried about what any your feelings are, whatever you have emotionally, 15-minute RSI crosses, 15-minute moon hits, RSI below the 80, you take an entry right there with your 15-minute green moon, and man. Now, down the road, I'm going to show you how you can take advantage of these 8 to 9% pumps. Okay? But right here, if you just followed the basic system in 50, 50, 50, 50, 50, 50, 50, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 trades at 50%. This was a course of started at the 25th at 7:30. All right, this traded all the way through, and you had basically 2 days over here that this one coin, if you're trading in these zones, could pay you off. Easy to grab 5, 6 trades a week on it, you know, and put yourself where you need to be. So if you're getting 5 trades a week, 10 trades a week, 50% on your bags, then we can scale you up. But it's the same entry over and over. And I showed you the different ways. If you systematically watch the pullback, it shows support, you get in, right? You're protected if it pushes up and goes down further with your second trade. And if it pushes up, goes down even deeper, you buy that third. But your third entry has to be below your second entry, right? And most of the time you want to kind of set it at your first entry, right, point. So that's kind of like a way to look at it and say, okay, well, what's my first entry point? Well, that's where I'm going to set my third entry. Or maybe to protect myself even more, I go down from my first entry and say, okay, I'm going to enter down here. So now you're really protecting, right? Because your third is basically set up to protect your percentages here. So don't put your third entry anywhere above your second or anywhere above your first. Use it for anything that's past the first on a bounce, and then take your third entry, right? Or even with your first entry, if you see the bounce, right? If you see the RSI bouncing up or the volume bouncing up and it's all working out for you, then you can add that extra money in and go, okay, I'm just gonna pad my pocket at here. But do not take it if it's above the second. So these are the trades that we're going to go through and do over and over and over. And we're going to stay in this same little zone, right? And this is why trying to get more out of the trade doesn't make too much sense, because if you just let it reset, you're going to be able to, you just move to another trade. All you want is 50%. And if you can master that 50% every single time, you just keep compounding that money. And eventually your bag goes from $100 to 200, 200 to 4. And now guess what? The 50% that you used to get on $50, now that 50% is on 400 or 500, right? You know what that means? It means we're 10x. So the $25 you used to make is now worth $250. No rush, boys, no rush. Slide into it, take your time, work the same entries over and over. All right, so recap, guys, if you're brand new, you trade with 10 bucks, maximum 20. Don't overdo it. Okay? The only way that you wanna keep increasing your bag will win every fucking trade. Because the trade that you're taking is good for 50% every single time. So you should be able to take that, and no matter what, if I want to trade more than $20, then I need to make 10 trades, and I need my profit needs to make 60 bucks. So just think of it like that. If you have $20 and you start with a $20 bag, you need to make $60 in profits. Okay? Once you make $60 in profits, you do it again to prove that it's not a fluke. The second time you do it, you make 60 bucks in profit, take 20 bucks and now do $40. If you want to double $40, then take $40 and make 3 times 40 in profits, 120. make that price 3 times in a row. First time says I can do it. Second time says it's not a fluke. Add $40 to your bag. Now you trade $80. Repeat that process until you get above 100. Once you get above 100, every time you trade and you get your 50% wins in a row, add $50 to your bag and just keep working your way up. Okay? Don't cheat the system. It's all designed there to protect you from yourself. That's why it's there. It's designed there to protect you from all the stupid shit that everyone has done before you. Okay? You're not any different. We all feel different. A lot of things that we're different that we do, but in the trading game, it's a design system and they designed it for them to win. It's exactly what it is. All right, guys? That help you guys out? You get some information today? So we'll take questions on there. So who do we have in here? So the video will be up on there. We'll come back in. CNA, how are you? I see you without your mic muted, but you might have to add a mic. So if you don't know how to get in there, you want to go to the YouTube channel, check out your microphones and all that. Coded, what up, Coded? My boy Max. Hey, Pro, how's that? Does that make sense for you, Pro?
Definitely. I like the where you pointed out the like the third, fourth moves, because it's it's such a positive uptrend.
Right.
Like you can let that run out for a little bit longer than that 50%, and obviously you just move the stop loss up with it.
Yeah. And that's the reason why I'm covering it too.
Some of those were, yeah,
I'm just covering it too. Just kind of like, for the new guys, just keep with your 50-50-50. Pro's been trading for a little while, so he knows how to move his stop loss. So this is something he can kind of like start to move around. For me, I just, moving the stop, I like to, I target 100% every time, and I just take 100%, right? That's kind of like how I target out my trades. Like, because I know that I can, when I'm trading, I got the better entry. I'm always hitting it. So I average about 120, 130%, but I just mark it at 100 because I want to stay with the mentality that if I'm chipping away all day, if I want to make a certain amount of money, and if it's like, okay, I make 100% on my trade, and I'm where I want to be. So once I figure out the money that I want to make daily, then I adjust my bag and my take profit accordingly, right? That's kind of how, once you get to that level, you're like, all right, I want to make 250. I'm gonna do 3 trades today. All right, I want to make $500. So then I take a $500 bag, I take 50% profits, I make 3 trades, and I'm done. Right? I know that I can get 100% of my trades really easy. So then I aim for 50% because I don't want no risk. So I make my life easy by trading half of what I'm capable of, so that way there's no risk. And if I want more money, I just increase my bag, or I increase my trades. So once you get to that part, then we can start moving things around to get you where you want to go. But the first part is you have to be able to make 50% a trade every single time. Every single time. You should not lose a trade. You should lose a trade 1 out of 20. But if you're trading the system, whether you're jumping it or systematically trading it, you should never lose more than 3 out of 10. And you're at the lowest level. That's the beauty of it. And then the percentages that you're going against are just going to add up in your favor. And that's where it makes everything play out the way it's supposed to play out. What's going on, twins? So, Pro, I want you to kind of like get into what's going on, brother. Get into the system so that you can get your data back. What's the lowest percent it goes negative before it goes up? What was the highest percent, right? And then once we get that, we can start going over other adjustments, which would be videos in the future. But you want to have the basics down right now, so that as you move into the future, those adjustments will benefit you to your max. That's the beauty of it.
For sure. I think one thing that kind of screwed me for a little bit was my candles on TradingView. So I had updated them to the whatever, the Heikin Ashi. So I had changed them. I didn't change them on MEXC at first, but then somehow they reset. I don't know if it's something I did on TradingView. So the price wasn't matching up on the charts. But then also I've noticed if you have the candle set differently on TradingView, the trend lines, they would
different.
flip red. They flip differently because obviously like
They're more
those Ashi
sensitive.
candles, they're the average price. So when on the regular candles they were flipping back and forth from like a red trend, so you would see a red moon, red trend, but in reality if you looked at the Ashi candles, it wouldn't actually be a red trend, it was just like little movements. So it was I think that was like kind of why I was like hesitating to get into positions, because I was like, well, the indicators are saying this, and and then I would enter in a position. I'm like, man, I was like, everything looks like it was pushing that way, but so then I realized that my indicators, like
The
stuff
candles
got
were out.
reset. So
and just make sure when you
kind of
when you reset your candles and everything, just hit there's a save button on your TradingView top middle to the right. There's a little thing where you can save your page or your, what they call it, the your layout. So you hit the little save on your layout. Make sure when you make your change, you put the save on the layout, and that'll lock that in.
Right.
As far as MEXC, if you're going to get the right price on there, just make sure when you type in your TradingView, you put .p at the end. So to get the same price, you need to kind of set up, when you search a coin, you see how it says Magic USDT.p? Yeah. Always make sure you have .p on there.
I have all those, but so if you go on MEXC, if you looked at your chart, so if you scroll up, so you see where you have it, where it says like original, like on the top right of that window. So if you can hit TradingView on there, and then you can change the candles on that to the Heikin Ashi as well. Like if you click, so now right above where it says MEXC on that chart, you can hit on the right there. You can change those candles.
Yeah, you can change everything.
So go right above where it says MEXC, where it shows the candles symbol.
Where you at? Top right over here. 15 minutes.
Right next to where it says 1 day. Yeah, and then you see like solid candles, and on the right of that you can change it to the candles right there. Like down. So down into like that menu, you can change it to the right there.
Go to Heikin Ashi.
I had it on TradingView, but then the candles were like normal, so it was mixed. Like on TradingView website, I had it properly, and then I had clicked on that TradingView chart there, and they were different, so the prices weren't matching up. So I was making an entry, and then the price would like jump real quick, So I had like a target price set, but then it wasn't. I was like looking at a chart that was a little bit off.
Yeah. So I mean, for me, it's like, so if you're in TradingView, right? So let's see. All right, so let's go to which one do we have? Magic. All right, so Magic is TradingView 120.008. Let's pull up Magic here. So 120.13. See, when you go in MEXC, if for some reason, if you're on the original, right, it'll be the price when you pull it up. So on MEXC, when you're on the original, okay, what you're actually on, because you're in futures, you are on the futures chart. So you see how it's 120.24? So when I go to my TradingView, You see how it's 1/2024? When you type in TradingView, when you type magic USDT.p, that is the original. So when you went to TradingView, you separated yourself from the USDTP map. That's why you had to change your candles to Akinashi,
Right.
because you're not in you were in a different setup. But if you're on XC,
that's what
yeah.
I realized. I was like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, so that's why I clicked
I
on
was
Twitter.
like-
I like that chart better, and
Yeah.
I was like, why is this? You know, I was like, when I figured that out, I was like, oh, you're an idiot. Like, stop trying. I was doing too much. You know.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm sure. I bet a lot of people. You know, that's funny. I bet a lot of people do that shit, and they're like, "Why is my price different?" But yeah, because now you're looking at TradingView, but you're looking at TradingView setup, right? And when you go to, the weird thing is that when you go to the original is actually set up on your USD. It's going to track your USDTP pricing. It's a little bit different. Yeah, I'm sure. I wonder how many people do that shit, don't even realize.
Yeah, I realized after the fact, because I was like, why is this so far off? And then it's like, there's no way, because it updates in real time.
That's hilarious. That's probably a ton of people that do that and don't even realize it. Wow, I'm on TradingView. Like, no, bro. That's funny. But yeah, so I mean, on here, just basically going through just run the system through, right? And then we'll be able to get data, and then you'll get better. The system's designed to have where if you're systematically following the double move, letting the volume do its retest, even if it's early and it goes to reset, and then later you get the next one, that the guy's first trade becomes his second trade, right? And you're still in the same zone. That's why we have it set up that way. So now with the 3-trade entry, 40 on the first, 30 on the second, 30 on the third, this is going to clean up the in-betweens and also allow guys to get into more trades. And then once they're in more trades, that'll allow them to, you know, get where they're going a lot quicker. So that's why we have all that set up there. So Magic here, let's try to find a floor. But that is where you can kind of solve all that. Ugh. All right. Let's see. Twins, what's going on, man? How are you?
I'm doing well, VC. Thank you.
Man. How are we doing with the trade?
Well, today I had a pretty good day when everything was jumping up.
Okay.
Made some pretty good profits. Stayed in some a little bit too long until I got shorted out. But
what was how high did it go before it went back?
Why, some of them, my computer just is doing a reset, but I was in, let me see, in Bitcoin early.
What was the highest?
I was just.
So when it went up,
it was. I was probably up like 45% with a 30x leverage, and then it dropped out, and then I ended up taking, I think somewhere around like a 30% short in the profit, so that was pretty good.
Yeah,
and then so other ones.
So on that trade there, before on the Bitcoin, before it went up to the 47% profits, what was the most it went down?
So that one was fluctuating a little bit. I when I get into my trades, I'm doing a 50-30. So
okay, so you're doing just 50% profit, 30% stop loss?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just I'm
keep
new and I'm just going through.
Yeah, what's your leverage?
The interest. 30.
Okay, so on there, move your leverage up to 50.
Okay.
All right.
I'll do that then.
And then that would you would hit your profit on that one.
Yeah, and I did hit my profit on one. I was in 6 different ones. I think I shorted out in profits on 4 of them. 2 of them, not so much. They went down and they lost me at 30. But overall, I had a positive day. It's not something that I can sit and watch entirely, you know, because I'm working and everything. But once I'm in a profit and I get it to the 30% profit, I'm just letting it coast.
Okay, yeah,
just the best I can to follow it the best I can.
Yeah, and you just want to use so on here. This is perfect example. Like, and this is kind of like adjusting adjusting to everyone's different life, right? So he's working, he gets alerts, he comes over, he gets his trade, and then he's like, he got his 50% target, his 30% stop loss. He's pretty much done with that trade. Now it has to do what it does, right? So the only thing more that he can do with that at that point is that when the profits, you know, kind of get above 35% area, you know, or like on the basics, let's say his profits get above 25%, he can move his stop loss from 30 to 0, right? So now technically he's got kind of a break even point there, or like move it, you know, that point there. When it gets to around anything above 25%, he can just slide that to 0, right? Now the second thing that he can do, and that's just randomly checking on it, if his profits, you know, break above, you know, a little bit above the 40% area, he can move his stop loss over to a 20% profit target. And then at that point, it's either going to hit 50 or hit 20. Okay. There's really not much else to move there. And that's kind of how he can operate that. So even if he doesn't get to it at all and it just runs its course, it either takes 50% profits or it takes 30% stop loss, right? So that's kind of like the element that he can put in there. Now, if he puts his 50% leverage on there and kind of like move it up, oh, that looks dope. And if he puts it the 50% leverage and then he just kind of leaves it, this is going to help him increase his wins and move about his day. So that's kind of what most people are doing. So even if once you set your things, you're kind of just you're in the zone. That's kind of where that is. So that's the part of it. Like, even if you're working and you just set your trade, you just leave your trade. It is what it is. You check on it every once in a while. If you're above 30% profits, move your stop loss to 0 and then let it play out. So you either win 50% or you hit the 0. But that way, when you do the 10 trades, the 5 trades that you hit for 50% is worth 250. The 5 trades that you lose, 3 of them are negative. Your stop loss, right? Whatever it is, should be, you know, 30 is kind of on the low side, but I would at least, I like 50, but you can do a 35-40 area. You know what I mean? But you can get to the point where no matter what happens is, let's say the 5 on there, 2 of them he moved his stop loss, the other 3 he didn't. That's 60%, or worst case scenario, 40 times 3, 120% negative. The other 5 hit for 250. So when he breaks it down, he's up 100%. So when he did his 10 trade, he successfully got his 100% win, right? So that's really the goal. And the sad part is, if you stayed that terrible, and we could actually design a system for you to be profitable, because if you realize, oh, I'm doing 10 trades and I'm doing 10 trades every 2 weeks. Okay. Now, if let's say we did $1,000 per trade, right? That means that every 2 weeks he would make $1,000, right? So it's kind of like that simple to get where he's going, right? And eventually, you know, trades will hit a little bit better. You know, sometimes he'll be in the point where he'll win 7 out of 10, and he'll only take 2 losses. And instead of making $1,000 out the 10 trade, he'll make 1,500, maybe even 2,000, right? But at the end of the day, he's averaging, you know, 3,000 a month. That's, you know, 36 a year. I don't know, 36K for being the worst trader I know. It's probably a good deal.
I'm definitely following that classification right now.
Yeah. So that's, but that's kind of, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's what I mean. Like, when you have a structure that is like, you know, protecting you from all the worst case scenarios, and you can just trade out and be like, okay, I can be terrible and I'm all right. When you get better, things will get better, but it all gets better systematically, right? So that's the beauty of the system, the ability to trade, make this, get in and out and get where you're going, and still have an understanding that at the end of the 10 trades, I'm going to have my answer. And even if I'm terrible, I'm still doing well. And if I start improving, then I'll do better, right? Because all I have to do is adjust his leverage to get him more wins. And if his entries are terrible, then we just adjust his entry a little bit and then he'll get more wins. And eventually he will win 9 out of 10 of his trades. He will take in out of that day, he will go from making 100% profits to, let's say, 7 out of 10. Now he's taking in 350% profits. He's only losing 90%. So now he's taking in 250% on his trades. So if he had $1,000, he makes 2250 or 2250 or 2,500 every single 2 weeks. Now he's $5,000 a month. Now he's making 60 grand a year, and he's still terrible. Right? But that's what you guys have to understand is that's the mindset is once you have that structure, then you can figure out that, okay, I'm in a good zone here. I just need to like, I just got to get in the gym.
And I think my main issue is patience. I'll get the 1 hour moon and then I'll flip over to the 15-minute and it's already passed, or the RSI is above either the short or long above the 80 or below the 20. And it's just a process of waiting for it to reset. And, as I'm watching this, it's not that I'm crunched for time with work or anything, but I mean, you see something, you think something's going to pop. So maybe you'll play it hoping that it does kind of work out for you the way you're expecting it. And sometimes it just doesn't. So I'm sure my trading would be a lot better if I was just a little bit more patient.
Yeah. And then you can, to kind of help with the patience side, right, is do this. That's what I was kind of showing the guys. The only time to be aggressive on the long is after the third 15-minute trade, right? So if you're looking at shorts, after the third 15-minute short, you can be a little more aggressive because now momentum's working with you. You know what I'm saying? Because the first time a trade goes long, it's just starting its reversal. The second time on the 15-minute, it's building momentum. The third time is when it's going to make its move. So like a short, the first red moon, I don't worry about on the 15-minute. The second one's when I start to make the trade. The third one's when I get aggressive. Now, that's also learning to look at volume. If you're looking at your 15-minute volume and it's positive, it's like, well, this isn't the time to jump a short. But if it's negative and it's rejecting, all right, you can jump a short here because more than likely it's not going to jump more than it should. Just like on a long,
right?
If it's negative volume, right, it's not a good time to jump a long because you're still negative volume. But if it's positive volume and it's retested twice, or this is the third time it's going to retest, then you can jump the long because more than likely it's probably going to hold.
Yeah, I wanted to say too, if you had it at 30 times leverage and you're hitting 40+%. Then you were spot on because we were only looking for a 1% move. So in reality, if you have it at 30 times leverage and you set your take profit at 30%, that would be your exact move. But the fact that you had it at 50% at only a 30 times leverage, you were trying to eke out more than a 1% move.
Yeah.
Right.
So you probably were, if you looked at your entry, you were probably like right there. Because if you got your 1% move, but that would have been 30% since you were only at a 30 times leverage.
Right. And that's the beauty of it when you have a system, right? This is the beauty of it, what you guys just heard there. Once you understand the system, you can decipher what you need to do. And you're doing it inside of a structure that's you're already doing. You don't have to trade anything. That's the beauty of it. You guys are going to learn, like, eventually when, 2 months from now, start really bringing, every time new people come in, there'll be a bunch of guys like, no, listen, this is how it works. Once you understand how it works, then you can make adjustments to what you're doing because you're not changing any trade that you're doing, right? So all to do to make you win is just adjust some leverage to get you to your target a lot faster. Not how you entered, not how you looked at the trade, not anything. And then once we have an average of how far you go backwards, then we can adjust that first to make sure that we have a safety zone. And then once we have a cushion, then we can adjust to the leverage to fix the targets once we have the foundation of the cushion, right? And once you guys see that shit, you're not doing anything different in your trading. Now you're just fixing the using the tools that they gave you to take advantage of what to increase what you're doing. It's like when you go out there and you're like you're playing tennis or baseball or you're running or whatever, and you're like, yo, you're using a terrible bat, or that's a shitty tennis racket, right? If I gave you a wooden tennis racket and told you to go play tennis, and you spent 3 months learning, and then I handed you a new racket, you'd think you were God, right? But you did nothing different in your tennis. I just gave you a better tennis racket. That's the beauty of the things. Once you learn how to trade on the 50x leverage, I can hand you a better racket. And you play the same game, but you're getting twice the results. All right? So the first thing is to remove emotions, become systematic. The second thing is to fix the cushion, use leverage to be more winners. That's it. Once we're in that zone, it's just profits. Now it's just run the factory. And the Model Ts come out. Boom, 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 boom. Doesn't matter. Production. That's the beauty of it, man. All right, so that's what we're gonna run through there, guys. I'm gonna put this video here. I'm gonna run into a stop, and then we'll save this. This will go in there, and it's just a longer time, but it's just the format of what we're gonna be doing, and then we'll chop this up a little bit later, and I'll create a intro trading system, and it'll be systematically off of what we just looked at. I just like to have one-on-ones, go through it, so that way guys can kind of like analyze it a little more, get a little more questions in there. But this was a longer version of it because it's just explaining why we have everything the way we have it. And it doesn't matter what trades or what you do or when you enter wrong or you entered early or you took the quicker entry. If you're doing it systematically, you're always safe. You're not gambling. So if you watch the volume on the 15 barely break up and then it retests and you enter and then it goes up and then it retests again, you weren't early on that. You weren't gambling. You were entering off a system. It was just an early system. Now the next guy lets the RSI reset. What is he doing? He's just running the same system. He's just adding another checklist, right? That's all it is. Both guys right, and the system is designed to support both guys' decisions. But they're not just randomly going, okay, right now I'm entering, right? He had a reason. So as long as you have a reason to enter, then if that reason doesn't work 7 out of 10 times, then you say, fuck that reason. I'm going to go with this reason because this reason hits 9 out of 10. And the reason I was doing hits 5 out of 10. It's not a good reason. You see what I'm saying? So if simply by letting the RSI reset every single time gives you more wins, then that's probably something you should say to yourself and say, you know what, I'm going to let that reset. Right? But everything's done for a reason. There's a purpose to it, not just a gamble or there's a spike. Oh shit, there's a spike, I got to get in. And then it dumps. There has to be a reason. It's the only way you can add and remove things that you use to create purposes for entries. That make sense?